quest.
And now, the latest from the ZD Network newsroom.
Hello, I'm Erica Hill in the ZDNN newsroom. Yahoo is the latest victim of an online attack. The site was hit with a denial of service attack, taking most of Yahoo's services down for about 3 hours on Monday. A denial of service attack is like a traffic jam. It happens when someone sends packets of mock traffic to a site, preventing real users from accessing information. The outage began at about 10:30 a.m. Pacific time Monday. The site was back up by 1:30 p.m. Yahoo says none of its user information or data was compromised. The company is working with Global Center, its major hosting service, to find the source of the attack. In the meantime, Yahoo has installed rate filters to prevent any further outages. For the full story, head to cybercrime.com and stay tuned for updates every hour.
The following is a ZDTV special presentation. And now, Digital Divide.
Hello, I'm John C. Dvorak. Welcome to this special presentation on the digital divide, the gap between the technology haves and the have-nots. We begin tonight with a 2-hour commercial-free documentary on the issue, and we want to talk to you about it. Go to ZDTV.com and join in on our live chat, or visit siliconspin.com to send us an email. After the show, join us for a special hour-long Silicon Spin with a debate with our panel of pundits. Thanks for joining us for this special presentation on ZDTV.
Funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
We are wiring America's schools.
It's fun, it's exciting.
Talking about kids.
Some people don't know how to turn a computer on.
It's something that the white kids do.
There are only boys in that class.
24 boys and no girls.
The future is here. It's just not evenly distributed.
You can't get a job if you can't run a computer.
Computer is like a luxury to us.
It's a wonderful thing, but not everybody's going to get to have it.
Every classroom and library in America connected to the information superhighway by the year 2000.
It's a moral obligation of every principal to bring technology into the hands of their students.
And I think if you wait until high school to do that, you may be too late.
Parents have bought into the industry message. Your kids need this as soon as possible or they're going to be way behind the curve.
What you see all the time are blanket statements like every school and every student stands to gain from technology. Right below here, down here, it should say true or false, because right now we don't know.
The high-paying jobs, those jobs are going to be given to those people who have mastered this high technology.
We are, unfortunately, becoming a society of digital haves and digital have-nots.
The issue of, should we wire the schools? That debate is settled. Over $6 billion is being spent this year on putting technology into classrooms. The only question left for us today is how to do it right. How to make it pay off for the kids, for the classroom, and for the entire community.
Did a very good job on that. Okay, get to work.
In the last century, the classroom really hasn't changed all that much. The teacher still stands at the front of the class, the students are still in their seats, the teacher talks, and the children listen. But with the arrival of the computer in the classroom, that may finally be changing. More and more people now see computer skills as one of the new basics every child should have, just like reading, writing, and arithmetic. But what will happen to those children who, for reasons beyond their control, don't get the computer skills they need? There's a growing fear that they will be lost, permanently left behind as we move into our technological future. I'm Queen Latifah. Join me for a look at the people, the problems, and the possibilities on both sides of the digital divide.
You know, the future is like a freight train. You can hear the whistle. The whistle says the internet. cyberspace. Let's make sure that this freight train generates new jobs for everybody, not just the elite.
Those that do not have computer skills really do not have basic skills for jobs today. The U.S. Department of Labor says that 70% of the jobs by year 2000 will require some kind of computer knowledge. And those then who do not have those computer skills cannot qualify at a very basic level.
And there's a real danger that if we don't address the needs of all people in our nation, that we will increase the digital divide and that some people, some groups will be left behind.
There is going to be a huge gap between the people that are fluent technology-wise and the people that aren't, and I don't think there's going to be a middle ground.
There was a time in a society, if you're willing to work hard and you had a strong back, you could make a living. That time is just about over. And if you don't have information age skills, the problem is you're just not going to be able to exist in this economy.
So I pretty much noticed that the job world is pretty bleak, kind of like you're looking for a job that everyone's competing for too. Kind of like a hyena competing for the same piece of meat.
Our school system is set up to basically train people for industrial age. They're not really set up to train people for an information age, and some people are getting a shot at learning information age skills, and others just aren't. If one kid sees a computer every day from K through 12, and another kid doesn't see a computer until he or she gets into the workplace, who's going to get hired, and who's going to do better in that workplace?
The scary part of it all is it's really difficult to catch up. Once you're behind, things are progressing at such a rapid pace that you're playing a constant game of catch-up.
Why do you think that could be wrong?
That means that we, all of us, have a vested interest in making sure that every child has access to what will help them compete in the global economy.
Or else we are going to be left with a group of people who are not just imperiled, but are actually beyond help because that divide has become so great.
For instance, Wilfredo.
The key to success as we move into the digital revolution is education. How are we preparing our young people for the challenges and opportunity that will exist?
Education can't get much more digital than it is here. New Technology High School in Napa, California. New Tech is an experimental school with 220 students and 280 computers.
It was 5.6 times 10 to the minus 8. The mission of New Technology High School is to prepare our students for high-wage, high-skilled jobs of the future.
How's it going?
We are not a high-wealth district. We wanted to attract a wide variety of students. We didn't want all, the rich so-called brainy kids or anything like that. We wanted to give this opportunity to use technology and to learn in this business environment to as a wide variety of students as possible.
We entered into conversations with our local business community. What we found that they really needed was an academically prepared student that also had technology skills that allowed them to communicate effectively in an information-based work environment.
Well, since you guys are good with audio and figures, me and her, we can work with the...
Kep Lim is a New Tech student who thrives both academically and personally in the school's technology-driven curriculum.
And then you guys can work with the audio and figures, and we can... First time I've been on a computer is about 2 years ago when I first decided to come to New Technology High School. I'm basically on a computer just about every day. The technology, for me, it's a very powerful tool.
Then we need to leave that alone. We just put it on here.
New Tech's kids do much of their work using a team approach, learning through collaboration and group problem solving. The same approach favored by many high-tech companies.
Throughout my whole life, I've been kind of like a solo guy and like to do everything just by myself. But ever since coming to this school and being able to work in teams, being able to fit into the real world, to the working world, it's going to be very important to be able to have these skills. See how it goes from there.
All right, I'm good with the toys.
It's real fun because it's an experience that I might not get at a regular high school that I'm getting here. We're not treated as just kids, we're treated as adults. pretty much of what I'm planning on.
Teachers don't look at our students as students per se. We try to look at them as perhaps our co-workers that we're here to supervise and help to do a good job. And have you been thinking about the story?
Yeah, I pretty much have a story already, on a storyboard already done.
The most important thing to think about in bridging the digital divide is to understand that it's not simply the technology and access to the technology that will ameliorate this problem. I think it is enabling people to have access to opportunities, which means learning skills.
I want you to take that parallel port, install it in this PC, take it up to the nurse's station.
Gotcha. Do I have to, is that plug and play, or do I have to just go and install it manually?
It's going to have to be installed manually.
All New Tech students take part in an internship program working with technology in local businesses.
I also need you to go through some of the old PCs and pull out some of the RAM chips. We need them for our next week.
The businesses benefit from the students' considerable digital skills.
It's amazing what skills that these students bring to the table. If I were to hire someone, even in an entry-level position, to learn the basic skills, Microsoft Office, Lotus Notes, and some of the tools that they use on a day-to-day basis here, that's $2,000 or $3,000 worth of training just to even get them in the door. And these students walk in the door with those skills.
I started off as a volunteering internship, and from the work I've done, I was hired as a regular employee there. Feel really good about myself being able to do these things.
I think that by the time today's kids are in high school, it is important that they have the skills of word processing, database, spreadsheets, many of the applications, computer-aided design, the ability to use a multimedia format, and not only is this helpful for them in getting them ready, I suppose, for the adult world, but more important to me is that it gives kids of a lot of different learning habits the opportunity to shine using different kinds of visual or artistic media, as well as just straight reading, writing, and arithmetic.
You know, technology is just not an end to itself. We're not introducing technology because students need to learn how to use technology because they're going to be using it in their jobs as they move out into the workplace. Schools are about learning. What we really need to focus on is how can technology support the kind of investigatory, exploratory learning that we think is so valuable for our students. Ignore that, then any kind of change that we try and bring into a school is doomed for failure.
New Tech High School was built around technology, but the vast majority of American schools must add technology to their existing programs and facilities. There are few computers and even fewer internet connections in most of our nation's schools. For example, Hoover Elementary School in Redwood City, California, was struggling with only 24 old and obsolete computers when it was designated a technology magnet school. It's now outfitted with 2 state-of-the-art computer labs.
There's this recurring idea that computers and the internet will be a silver bullet, and that if we just say wire the schools, then all of the rest of the problems will be taken care of.
I do think computers are overrated in education. It's not going to fix the schools. It's not going to make children learn to read.
Most of these students are recent arrivals to the country, and there's probably not much in the way of family financial resources to buy a computer. And my estimates are that on this side of El Camino Real, on the east side of Redwood City, I'd be surprised if 10% of our kids have a computer. If computers are in our future, and that's what's driving this boom in the economy right now, then shouldn't our students have some feeling that they can control this technology? And this might be the only place they get it.
Okay, stars, we're going to work you with something that we've done before, some math software. We're going to number munchers. Number munchers.
We started. Sometimes I use the computer in the Boys and Girls Club, but not always, sometimes. That's the only place I know. The Boys and Girls Club and this place.
As is the case at most elementary schools, Hoover's teachers drop off their classes at a computer lab where students learn computer skills independent from their regular studies.
The computers, I think, have helped the attendance for the kids to come because they love working with computers. And if we tell them that they'll do a certain project or we'll go to a computer lab, they're here.
Students who have not been successful in any other area academically somehow are able to produce their ideas through the computers.
I have a student that's very low in reading and doesn't get very much good self-esteem, but he's great in the computer. And people ask him, well, how do I do this and how do I do that? And he helps them, and it's great for his self-esteem.
Well, these are wiring that connects all of the teachers, well, all the rooms to each other. With the T1 line, it's lightning fast.
Most schools would like to be as wired as Hoover, but some of Hoover's teachers will tell you that getting wired isn't enough. You also have to get trained. Otherwise, you could wind up wired for frustration.
We're faced with a paradox. On one hand, we see this digital divide widening with time, but on the other hand, we also see schools that have computers in them. You can go to most public schools in the United States, and somewhere you'll find a computer. However, if you look carefully, you'll find, first of all, that the computers are obsolete, and second of all, that they're mainly idle, that the teacher doesn't know how to use the computer.
Okay, we had everybody else put them on the desk, so that's why I didn't get it in there, but Rosa will stay 1 minute after school, and I will put it in her book so that she gets to take it too. I took the computer class that teachers are required to take for their credential, and I don't feel I received any training adequate to making me able to teach computers any better than when I walked into the class, and that's my big complaint, is that you can't buy a bunch of computers and not train teachers in a curriculum to use them and expect education and learning to go on.
They want us to use our current time to become computer literate, but it's a question of choices. If I go to a meeting to learn a new computer program, I'm not preparing a good reading lesson for the next day. And so my question is, what do my kids need? Do they need a good reading lesson so they become literate? Or do they need to know a neat way to do video journaling? And so this year I've answered, they need to become literate.
People who are trained in computers go make $80,000 a year working in computers. They don't go into administration, they don't go into teaching. And so we don't know, they don't know, they keep buying the computers, but we don't know how to teach them. So kids are playing video games. A video game that teaches you to add and subtract is still a video game.
Well, I like it when it shows like a little TV. It shows like a muncher is gonna come to eat like numbers, and then a bomb will happen or something like that. Instead of the little frog that's gonna eat the number, the monster that wants to eat him gets hurt instead.
What you're seeing is that people are putting computer literacy before literacy, and they're confusing the importance of being able to read, write, and think critically with the ability to kind of manipulate a machine. And computers are only as useful as you are, as your ability to make good decisions and to sort of use this tool as an extension of your mind. So, for me, the classic example is kids being taught to use word processors, but not being taught how to write.
Was Matilda the narrator?
Making the most effective use of computers in the classroom is one issue. Choosing the age at which to introduce them is another.
There, see how it's kind of fuzzy on the edges?
I think we definitely should be concerned with age differences in technology use. This is a question which we have totally failed to ask, and that is, at what age really is this technology appropriate? I worry very much about wasting children's brain time, particularly at the elementary school level, because during those ages, the brain has very specific things that it needs to master. A lot of those are the learning habits that the kid is going to take with him for the rest of his life.
Many educators and parents are worried that if their children are immersed only in virtual reality, and they spend most of their time in these modeling worlds, they may not be able to have the rich socializing experience that education is also supposed to give them, so that they can connect to the community of human beings that make up society.
There are a whole host of skills that young people will need to succeed in the economy. And to be honest, technology and facility with technology is only one of them. I think in many ways, as I look at it, they need a combination of high-tech and high-touch kinds of skills and kinds of help.
kids need to explore, they need to play, they need to touch things, and of course they're relentlessly touching things. You know, mostly as adults we're saying don't touch, but that's how they have to get all their information, is through the senses. But now suddenly that information is on the other side of this glowing screen where they can't quite touch it, they can't smell it, they can't taste it, they can't manipulate it in any really clear, concrete way other than through this roundabout pushing of buttons.
Doug Goodkin teaches at a private K-8 school where most of the teachers in the younger grades do not want computers in their classrooms. Their decision may have been easier to make because almost all of these kids come from homes that do have computers.
Computers, which at first we thought were going to teach kids all these great higher level thinking skills, mostly are glorified, video games. You still need to keep connected with hands-on material, with participation, with working things out with kids at your table and on the playground and on the team.
You could have the purpley one.
And that time is being robbed from kids who spend more and more time in front of keyboards, whether passively in front of TV or semi-actively in front of computers.
You could do a century on the day.
I've chosen not to have computers in my classroom because I feel like children need to live in a tactile, interactive, three-dimensional world where they're working with materials, they're teaching one another, they're learning from each other, and they're learning how to interact with one another. And when people talk about it, we have to do this with this kind of, panic. This is inevitable. We have to prepare our kids for this inevitable future. I don't buy that.
Like, everyone has one plate, and everyone gives one person a plate to go across and build them, and then a bridge, and then we all go across when they're at the other. Okay.
When I feel the difference between what it means to be in a circle, to be playing games, creativity, ideas are bouncing off, and when I compare that to what it's like to step in a computer lab and see everybody back to back, tunneled into their computer, not looking at the faces of the people next to them, body still, head forward, fingers moving like this, I see that all these intelligences are being missed.
Whether all children need to be on computers really depends very much on your definition of what's going to constitute success. I mean, if you think that just being able to punch keys is going to make kids successful, think again. We want these children to be thinking, reflective human beings, develop new skills, readapt, readjust, be self-starters, think creatively, come up with problem solutions.
These are my kids. This is how my kids walk around. I don't think that a child who acts like that all day long, that this is their normal state. You have to ask yourself, what is a 6-year-old meant to be doing? Is a 6-year-old meant to be playing in the grass, or is a 6-year-old meant to be sitting in front of a screen?
The idea that students would sit in front of computers in a computer lab is really not a vision of education I think anyone is looking forward to.
Too many people think that the challenge is simply to get a computer into the classroom and maybe wire it up to the internet. And then you have all your problems solved, and then the children will simply learn away. Well, it requires more than that. It requires teachers who are able to stimulate them. It's just a big, clunky piece of hardware to children unless they get that initial stimulation.
Computers are merely tools. The teacher chooses every day to use the overhead projector, to use the chalkboard, to use the calculators, to use the hands-on science equipment. Well, the computer right there in the classroom becomes one more tool in the teacher's toolbox.
When an elementary school uses technology in a good way, the first thing they do is to say, what is our curriculum and what can technology do to enhance our curriculum that no other medium can do? So instead of having kids march off to a computer lab to do something that's totally isolated from what the teacher is doing, they integrate it in with what the teacher is teaching, so that if they're doing databases in the computer learning, they're doing a database of whatever it is they're studying, say in social studies.
Has anyone actually used this curriculum-first approach to technology in the classroom? Well, they seem to have come pretty close at Bryant Elementary School in San Francisco. Bryant isn't a magnet school like Hoover or a private school. In fact, it's a public school in the inner city that has the same kinds of problems most inner city schools have. But Bryant got major corporate funding to create a model computer program that's integrated into every aspect of its curriculum.
Today we're going to be looking at the internet, and the objective today on the internet is...
The important aspect that I like to think of with technology is that it's being used as a tool.
Your job today is to find out which cards are the most similar to the ones that you've made.
We don't think that computers should be used to drill any basic concepts. That is done in other ways, and that's certainly not the highest or best use of technology in a school.
Can they be all the same model?
Yes, they can be all the same model because they'll be different what?
Mix.
Different.
I think that when the computer is used as a reward system or as a drill and practice only, or I don't have time for you, go sit on the computer, then I would tend to agree with those people who say, oh, this is a terrible thing. When it is used to enhance your curriculum, when it is used to provide students with opportunities that you as a teacher believe they could have to help their understanding and retain the concepts that you're teaching, then I think it's essential.
No, this one. That one. All those pictures of cars we looked up in the internet gave us ideas, and the motor just doesn't help it look good. It also makes these two rods stay together.
Yvette Fagan's students use computers to do projects that involve the whole class and touch on more than one subject at a time. Their study of machines in motion combines physics and design, while a year-long puppetry project involves geography, art, music, writing, and theater skills. For Yvette's class, computers are tools of empowerment, helping the students learn how to learn, teaching them to teach themselves.
Move down, Terry and Tiffany. That was good. Okay. All right, so this is what we're going to do. Those people who are going to be working on a computer.
I don't think it would have been as meaningful an endeavor without the computer.
French.
Yeah. French paper mache. What's the other one?
Bunraku.
Bunraku. So where should we go? What countries do you think?
Bunraku.
Japan.
And France.
Japan and France.
The computer was being used every day as a resource and to check things against, or in painting the backdrops, what artists do we want? What style do we want to do our backdrops in?
This is a mountain that the other kids drew on this cardboard for the scene. So I'm painting it different colors because we want it to look impressionistic. Miss Fagan said that we have to make our paintings look abstract, and we were looking at the paintings on the internet, and then it gave us ideas how to paint and stuff, and then we just started painting.
Great. What they kept doing was going back to the internet and pulling up landscapes from Cezanne and making sure that they were still keeping the same kinds of strokes or same feeling and the same color schemes. I know it sounds kind of funny, but they just think they can, and so they do.
A computer is not a replacement for a high-quality teacher that can inspire young students to want to learn.
So I'm going to teach you all the way from www, exactly like that. Get going.
I think that the main thing that computers do is provide students with flexibility in thinking. It also teaches them to be very cooperative and enables them to direct their own learning, which are the skills that I think will become the most important in the future.
So are we ready to begin?
Good morning, Stratford. Good morning, Bryan Elementary.
How are you today? Hi. We want to welcome you to Stratford, Missouri. This is the class that you've been emailing back and forth with. And in order to...
Bryan Elementary uses video conferencing to take collaborative learning far beyond their own classroom.
Ha ha, little mortal, you have got what you wanted. Now you must work for me for a year and a day.
Okay, can anyone at Bryant Elementary guess who these boys are supposed to be?
Are you the giant?
Yes, they are. Good job. Very good guess.
You want your teachers to be able to use technology to be used as a tool for communication. And you really need a concrete plan. It's not bring in a computer in teacher A because teacher A likes technology, but leave teacher B out of the fold. The plan has to be a school-wide plan.
Bryant supports its teachers with a technology curriculum integrator on staff.
Why don't you click this?
Unlike a specialist in a computer lab, Virginia Davis comes to the classroom to help teachers navigate the web and sort through the vast array of software flooding the school market.
I have printed out for you for teachers who are unfamiliar with the computers. They need the prodding, they need the support, they need the help. Until the teacher can see the value in using technology, it will never filter down and be used the way it should be with the students in a class.
When you see a really exceptional teacher using a computer, you really get carried away by the potential of the computer when what you're really looking at is the potential of the teacher. And unfortunately, not all of our teachers are using computers at that level.
Too often, what schools started with was buying labs of computers that they put kids on. And those really important adults in their lives, their teachers, not only had no facility to use these machines, in many instances they were frightened by them, or they saw them as one more task they had to deal with in an already busy day.
The Levering Middle School in the heart of Philadelphia was chosen to take part in a nationwide program to teach teachers how to use technology in their classrooms.
A straight line.
Like many inner-city schools, Levering has a perpetual budget crunch, so the chance to launch a full-scale technology program, including teacher training, was an unexpected opportunity. Principal Diane Luffy took the idea to her faculty.
I thought it was a fad at first, just like you're so used to new things coming into the school system. And I said, oh, here's something else new coming in. What good is it going to serve me?
Being perfectly honest, after the first meeting that we had at the Franklin, everybody in this building's attitude was, oh, God, here's some more work to do. Nobody was excited about this. For all those that didn't have any experience, didn't really know, everybody's attitude was, here's some more work for us to do. No, we don't want to be bothered. We'll have to see.
That's a good point, right?
And we really weren't up for it, but it got a little more tantalizing and appetizing when we found out, okay, we're going to, not only will we get training and get computers, we're going to be paid.
It's one of the few things that we have been offered, I think, that we really like. You know, because we always have something new that's thrown on us, these new books, this, that, and the other. Standards, and this is one of the few things that I think that everyone is actually used and looking forward to.
Levering's teacher training was provided by the Franklin Institute, Philadelphia's local science museum. Unlike many programs, Franklin's focus was the impact of technology on teachers rather than students.
We focused on teachers first, having them adopt the technology first for their own professional uses, as opposed to student learning and student access to technology.
The fear was removed. I mean, we never told them that they had to use this with the kids, because that could be very scary. Instead, because they were able to become comfortable with it for themselves first, it wasn't so scary. Every single one of them has used their technology, their new computer, with their students. But they've all done it in their own way and at their own pace.
And then they would list that name first with a comma and then the name George.
What you're asking teachers to do when you introduce technology, both manage classrooms and deliver instruction, is you're asking teachers to change something that they've been doing for a very long time.
At the end of today,
This is a very difficult undertaking. Veteran teachers who've been teaching from 20 to 25 years, who, for the most part, feel very confident in their ability to both manage classrooms and deliver instruction.
I'm going to tell you what I want you to do. Listen up. Listen up. Everyone? All right. What we're going to do, boys and girls, is that I want you to choose somebody from each table, and I want you to go over to the internet, all right? We're going to need the help of the internet.
If you've left the human interface, the person who has the artistry, who's a talented teacher, out of the infusion of the new tool into the teaching and learning environment, then you really haven't, not only have you not changed anything, you've built a wall between that teacher and that learner.
2 more people. Come right on. All right.
In a typical urban school, it is truly a risk to let go in a classroom setting, to let the kids become the guiders and the directors of learning. And for that, I really admire these teachers. I think that they're very brave.
Does everyone understand what I expect of you?
Yes.
Okay. I am your last resort. I am only the facilitator.
To the extent that we can make the workplace as supportive, as dynamic, as lively a place for people to collaborate, grow as individuals, just as we all want to do, it should be a real learning organization for the professionals in it, as well as for the students. And that's a transformation that I think really needs to take place, and that technology will give us the opportunity to do.
No matter what approach a school or community takes to getting their classrooms wired, everyone has the same problem in common. Who's going to pay for all of this? Because no matter how you go about it, technology isn't cheap.
Magnet School money has allowed us to start investing in technology to the point now where we have about 200 computers on site. An exact amount would be really tough to say how much we've spent at this site on computers, but I would wager that it's probably around $250,000 once you add everything up, computers, peripherals, wiring, and that sort of thing.
The problem is, Hoover's technology money can't be used for anything but technology. It's a separate budget. And the budget for everything else is just as tight as it's always been.
The money that's spent on computers, if we spent that much money to be sure we had a library in the school, books to read, be sure we had pencil sharpeners that worked, you know, bathrooms where the toilet's flushed. The basic things aren't in the schools.
We have whatever 30 plus 20, 50 computers and no library at this school. Being a technology magnet feeds us, but it does not nourish us.
Most public schools are largely funded by local monies. And, you know, that money stream in many cases has just been pushed as far as it can be pushed. And this investment in technology and the human infrastructure to support the change with technology is going to take more money.
Back in Philadelphia, the Levering School's participation in the Science Education Project and the funding that went with it lasted for 3 years. Now it's over. Levering's on its own, and everybody's scrambling to find money to keep their technology happening.
You know, our funds are just so minimal. And you get other funds in, like if the lunchroom operates at a certain capacity, you get more funding. If you have energy costs that stay low, you get more funding. So it's whatever the greatest need is.
Access $3,167.36.
Okay, are we ordering the copier?
That has not been ordered yet.
Okay, but that's what we're going to use.
That's what we're going to use that money for.
And then possibly some printers if we have money left over.
After that, corporation gives you the initial computer. When you're ready for the replacement, suddenly they're not quite as friendly. It's a little bit like the junkie, you know, who first one's for free, now you're hooked.
To an outsider who walks into the Levering School and sees perhaps a chip of paint here and a broken desk there, the immediate need might seem to be those material things in the school. The teachers have certainly expressed to me their strong desire to have more technology in the school. And I look around and I say, this first? And they say, absolutely.
We call this the dungeon down here. It's probably about the worst place that you could have a room in the building. Probably about the worst.
Right in front. Some of it overlaps the bottle.
I think art is really important, but I'm not in the majority. I guess if you're going to pick anything to put down On the bottom, art is where it would be. It's at the bottom of the list. It's getting cut year after year after year. Every year, a little bit less. Just doesn't seem to be important anymore. You know, the kids say to me, well, why do I need art? And I thought, but art is everything, and art is everywhere. It's the clothes you wear, it's the buildings you go into, it's the cars you drive, or the buses, and everything around you is art. You live art. Art is your life. People don't see it like that, you know, especially in education. It becomes lower and lower and lower. It's just not as important. But I have a lot of kids that art is like their best subject, and they can't read that well, or they don't write that well, but they really can excel in art. And a lot of times they just don't even get the chance to do that. You should have computers. Kids have to know today, computers. It's important because the whole world is computers. I just want a little bit more, that's all.
If bringing technology into any school means giving up the arts, the humanities, phys ed, for example, library resources, time for kids to socialize together, I'd say that it's a bad allocation of resources.
This is another section of the DSEG. There's only $480 left.
We could possibly order a printer with that.
Right.
Just like any extra money that I don't have designated for something, I will try to order the computers. Elementary.
Computers crash, right? They break down. The average large business has a technical administrator for every 60 desktops. Well, that would mean some support person for every 2 classrooms. And I don't think a lot of schools are able to make that kind of commitment. So it's not just the hardware, but it's the whole commitment to making that happen.
When you've got what are referred to in the trade as the boxes and wires installed in the school, that's just the beginning. You've only begun to pay at that point. Each and every year after computers have been installed in a school, that school district should be prepared to pay at least 1/3 of the purchase cost, the initial cost, for such things as training, replacement, repairs, upgrades.
The ongoing cost of technology has become a familiar challenge at Bryan Elementary. The initial cost of their computer program was paid for by a corporate-sponsored startup grant, but keeping the program going is up to Bryan. Estimated annual cost, $60,000, money that has to be raised by the school each year.
I can tell you that to fund the type of technology program that we have, we certainly by no means could do it with our site resources. Just organizing the business partners, the donations, the various other funding and resources, including grant writing, is a job unto itself.
An hour a day. New Tech High School doesn't experience the technology funding problems of many public schools, largely because it receives major ongoing support from its corporate partners. It also gets revenue from renting its state-of-the-art computer facilities to corporations and local organizations for training.
A key aspect of the future of New Technology High School is business education partnerships. We absolutely have become dependent on our business partners to continue to provide mentoring, to continue to provide support, to continue to look at our school and our students as the workforce of the future. And I'm very happy to say that they see us the same way.
Just quickly, let me mention a little bit about Silicon Graphics' involvement as a business partner here. You can kind of see they left their footprint all over the building. The color schemes were from Silicon Graphics.
In a way, the school has been the last haven from the kind of media assault that you get in the home, and now those barriers are breaking down. You know, now the corporations are in the schools via the technology.
Yes, we have business partners. Yes, they help us, they influence us, but what people need to realize is that all the staff people here are professional educators, and we understand that the public school environment is not a business. I think it's easy to assume that here at the school it's completely a corporate enterprise and we're trying to churn out industry clones to go and be computer programmers, but we are in a way a mediating force. You know, we are a buffer between the strict hardline corporate, corporate ethic and the needs, the special needs of public education.
Okay, so he's got that set up. Good.
Okay.
And I gained computer skills here, but what I'm really happy about is the fact that I got to have fabulous teachers for the last 2 years of my high school, and that it helped me get into a school that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to go to.
As is so typical in the world of technology, solving one problem, in this case how to fund a school, can create another. New Tech has lots of computers, but it doesn't have a library, or sports, music, art, or extracurricular activities.
See you on Monday.
Bye. Not having a library, it would be nice to have books, you know, like novels, which we don't have.
There's a couple of things that I think I miss, but it's no big deal for me because that's all high school left behind, kind of football team and library books, but we have everything online.
The way we integrated technology and education is pretty interesting.
I think Napa New Technology High School has shattered the paradigms of education in the United States. Educators that come through here are amazed about what an average student turns into in a matter of just a couple of weeks, as being so much more motivated about learning. Businesses are increasingly enthusiastic about this program because they're amazed how well it aligns with what the needs are, and to teach skills that are really relevant in today's world.
Schools should not be training grounds for a corporate workforce. Their purpose is much different. Schools should not be about making a living, but about making a life.
So is there any place in America that has all of this figured out? The hardware and the software, the training and support, the politics and the money? In Pullman, Washington, they think they have. Their whole school system is wired. They're using technology across the curriculum and in every grade.
Eudora email to send, and what we need to do first is write the message that we want to send on our computer disk, and then we can take that disk and upload it into a Eudora email message.
So what you've seen here is taking place in a public school. It's not a magnet school, it's not a private school, it's not a school funded by major business or industry grants. This is what we've grown in our community here in Pullman by people saying this is an important priority, and our wonderful school board that said, we hear what you're saying and we agree with you, and we're going to support you being able to do this and not be left out of the possibilities of where this can take us.
Pullman citizens pay for the program with a special levy that's attached to local property taxes, money that goes only for technology in the schools. As you might guess, getting that new tax approved took some doing.
First time we asked our community for support for a technology levy, it was resoundingly defeated. There were a lot of skeptics in our community that computers particularly would be used only as toys at the elementary level. So we had an obligation to demonstrate that technology was indeed a new learning tool for our children.
Well, let's go quietly down to our usual observation place and just watch and see what behavior the ducks do. We'll see if those ducklings come over or if the mother steers them away. But if we stand quietly, we'll get to see what kind of behavior they do. Okay, we ready? All right.
Though computers are used in every subject at every grade level, Pullman students obviously don't spend their days staring at screens and clicking mouses. Instead, they use computers to discover the world that's not only beyond their classroom, but beyond their small town.
I'm wondering if one of those mallards is the dad of those baby ducklings, and how come it's staying away?
That's a good question. We can check with some people that know a lot about waterfowl, wildlife, and see if they can answer that question for us.
Our classroom had been going to a local pond that's just easy walking distance from the school, and we started doing data observations, observing changes in the pond over seasons.
I'll zoom in on that, see if I can get as closest as I can get with our telephoto. Terry.
There's some grass on the island, and that dead grass that's now falling into the water, it used to be standing up.
The pond, it's getting really small. The red osier dogwood is almost
starting to fall into the water.
The island is,
all of it.
Yes, that island is still continuing to get small. It's a good And so we started sharing our data online with a group of schools, and eventually there were enough of us that were all studying water habitats or discovering our water habitats. For some schools, after we sent email, they said, well, we have a water habitat too. We'll go down and send you an email about what we see there. These are the documents that we can email to Novosibirsk, Russia, to our friends at Kimball Elementary in Seattle, to our friends in Uden, Netherlands, and to Diana in Puerto Rico. Those are the people that we send email messages to about our water habitat project. So look at the pieces of what you're doing in the classroom already, and then ask yourself, how can we share this on the internet? How can we build a community with other schools? Then I want you to click on April Pond and be thinking of what spelling words we might want to have for what we saw at the pond today. When I first started going online with these children and collaborating with other primary teachers, we discovered very quickly that the opportunity for them to talk to each other online through their written text was providing them incredible motivation to work hard on the writing skills that we were doing in the classroom. So Siri and Haley, you had a response from them. They've had a difficult time. Remember, we sent some email because Argentina had those floods, and Rosie and Alejandro and Julieta had to leave their home for a while. One of the powerful pieces about the internet communities that we've built with other schools is that it's not a big place somewhere else communicating with a small place, but it's one village communicating with another village. It's a local to local that becomes then a global context. And so while the pond is a science project, it also became a community action project that was very positive.
After 3 years of collecting data on the pond, the kids realized that their favorite water habitat was in trouble. The pond was shrinking, and no one was doing anything to stop it. So they got involved. They put together a multimedia presentation, took it to the town's Parks Committee, and asked for help in restoring one of their favorite places.
So the first thing that you'll do is telling about the internet conference that we had in New York, where the children that 2 years ago did that internet conference and the children in the class today presented their data from the pond since 1993 and invited the City Parks and Rec Committee to care about the island with them and see if we couldn't work on a project to restore it.
Then we used the computer at WSU to share our reports with students at the Youth CAN conference on Earth Day.
And the city was really moved by their presentation and voted that night to allocate some funds to restore the island and told the children that you have reminded us that we have an obligation to care about this habitat, and you've been excellent citizens. If we believe that education makes a difference, then we have to have curriculum and learning in our classroom that shows children right then that they can make a difference. And I think that's probably the greatest gift you can give them when they walk out of this classroom.
If we really want to give our children what they need, we will give them great teachers. And the technology will follow. But if we're going to have to make choices, for heaven's sake, let's put it in to the human end of the equation, not the machines.
80% of the jobs in the 21st century haven't even been invented yet. Or when you go into a Computer City or CompUSA and you're told that 80% of the products that are sold have been on the shelf for less than 18 months, you realize how fast this economy is changing. And we've got to create a society of kids who are fast enough to keep up with it.
When you're able to bring new resources into your classroom, when you're able to bring new people into your classroom through the internet, through the World Wide Web, it begins to open your eyes as an educator, and it begins to open the eyes of your students as learners.
There will be no hitchhikers on the information superhighway. Our challenge and our commitment is to make sure that we don't have a whole bunch of people over in this community standing out with their thumbs out while everybody else is proceeding on a journey on the main lane of the information superhighway as we move into the future.
You cannot uninvent the computer. The computer is here to stay. The question is this tool going to be used for the benefit of all, or is this tool going to be used to benefit just the few?
I, like almost every parent, is concerned that my children may not live as well as I do But I'm more concerned that my children may live in a two-tiered society, divided sharply between the winners and the losers.
At the beginning of the 20th century, there was another kind of divide facing America. The divide between those who could read and write and those who could not. Now, as we enter a new century, our children need another kind of literacy, computer literacy. But this new literacy cannot be achieved without the old. Although the computer provides unprecedented access to information, it is still only a tool. Without the ability to think critically, without an understanding of the world they live in, and without the spark of imagination, no amount of megabytes will prepare our children to succeed in the workplace or in life. We need to bring every child across the digital divide, not because that crossing will guarantee success, but because it will give every child the same chance. Next, on part 2 of The Digital Divide.
Computers are the wave of the future. Without a computer, you're nowhere. If you don't know how to work the computer, you might as well say you don't know how to work nothing.
Kids in more affluent communities are getting this kind of higher level thinking skill development experiences, and kids in poorer communities are at a risk because they're not having the enriched experiences that technologies like the internet can provide.
No, I do not have a computer.
Do you want to get a computer?
Not really, no. It don't matter to me. If I get one, I'll take it.
No, I don't have computers at my school, but I wish I had computers at my school.
Technology is the great equalizer. What a joke.
How come at homeroom you don't go to the computers?
If girls are not just literate in technology, but if they don't excel, if they aren't going in there and feeling passionate about it, they are doing great damage to their futures.
We went to the computer and we typed in the word girl on a search engine, and we got smut.
We have to make sure that we don't limit some of our children who we know are some of the best and brightest in the world.
To learn more about the digital divide, visit PBS Online at the internet address on your screen. Funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
To learn more about the digital divide, visit us online at ZDTV.com.
Hello, I'm John C. Dvorak. You're watching a special ZDTV presentation on the digital divide, the gap between the technology haves and have-nots. This issue is becoming one of national importance. The digital divide was a major theme in President Clinton's State of the Union address last month. And by the way, he watched a copy of this documentary to prepare for the speech. But we want to know what you think. You can join us in a live chat at ZDTV.com or send us an email. Just click on the Digital Divide feedback link on siliconspin.com. And after the show in 1 hour, you can debate with a special panel of pundits about the digital divide. Our guests include Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. and the commentary's producer, David Bolt. We'll also have a live studio audience joining in the discussion. That's coming up in just 1 hour after the conclusion of this special documentary presentation on the digital divide.
Computers and our children. Why isn't there access for all? Chat live right now at ZDTV.com. Click on the digital divide. Big thoughts, big theories, big thinkers.
The internet is a constantly evolving web, but what should it become? Find out where Vint Cerf, one of the net's birth parents, says the most important tool of our age should be headed.
Big thinkers. Wednesdays at 10:30, 9:30 Central on ZDTV.
This week on ZDTV, we made it through Y2K, but what's next? Find out from Vint Cerf, co-creator of the internet, on this week's Big Thinkers. Hey, Sinbad's dropping by. Tune in and take a look at online resources for Black History Month, Friday on Call for Help. Do you want to be part of a TV show? Well, here's your chance. Send your submissions to ZDTV's newest show, You Made It. Go to ZDTV.com for all the details. That's what's happening at ZDTV and ZDTV.com. Amaze yourself.
So you've got the best e-commerce website on the net, right? Prove it. Enter the UPS Merchant of the Week contest and you can win free promotion on ZDTV. Who has the coolest design? The best customer service? Register your site and let our viewers judge. Your .com could be featured on ZDTV for a whole week. The Merchant of the Week contest is on now. Register at ZDTV.com. Click on the Merchant of the Week. Big thoughts.
It's almost everything on the web is underexploited.
Big theories.
The internet is the beginning of a mind.
Big thinkers.
I think you have to be tough to get to the top level of anything, male or female.
Mark Edo and today's high-tech hotshots go one-on-one with their visions of the future through email, V-mail, and chat. Big thoughts, big theories, big thinkers. Wednesdays at 10:30, 9:30 Central on ZDTV. Big Thinkers is sponsored by Dell. And now, we return to the ZDTV special presentation of The Digital Divide.
Funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
We are wiring America's schools.
It's fun. It's exciting.
Talking about kids.
Some people don't know how to turn a computer on.
Something that the white kids do.
There are only boys in that class.
24 boys and no girls.
The future is here. It's just not evenly distributed.
You can't get a job if you can't run a computer.
Computer is like a luxury to us.
It's a wonderful thing, but not everybody's going to get to have it.
The digital revolution has fueled a period of sustained economic growth, unparalleled in our history. Digital skills have become the key to opportunity. But economics, race, and gender are factors that have made too many people into spectators instead of participants because they lack adequate access to technology. No access means no skills. No skills mean no opportunities.
We have a huge divide in this country. It's a divide of income and wealth and also opportunity. The digital divide, the unequal access to technology, to computers, this gap that we're already experiencing is going to even widen further. We will be faced with another generation, two populations, one on either side of this great technological chasm.
If you don't have a computer, it's not have and have not, it's can and cannot. You cannot educate yourself. You cannot communicate. This is about having the fundamental technology to be successful in the 21st century.
It is critically important to master the three basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also to have information literacy, the ability to access, interpret, and respond to information. Now, to get to information literacy, it assumes access. Economics have a lot to do with the divide. I mean, you know, the cost for a PC, you're still averaging $1,500, and a third of African Americans are in poverty, and they just don't have the disposable income on the one hand. On the other hand, folk make choices, and they decide whether to buy a VCR, TV, beeper, cellular phone, new sneakers, and so we'll have to make some choices based on our values and what does this technology mean to us. And I think all groups have to make those choices.
With regard to technology in the African-American community, I think there's a love-hate relationship. I don't think there's any community that loves technology more than African-American communities. If you go into neighborhoods, low income, high income, there will be pagers, there will be cell phones, there will be Sega Nintendos, there will be virtually every kind of technology except for a PC.
I don't even see any stores that sell computers, you know, in our areas. Now, I know that in the black middle class, that is a rise. In fact, I think it's rising higher than our white counterparts. And that was surprising to me because I didn't think that that was the way it was, but I can understand it because they want to be on the same level as their white counterpart, and they are pushing for it, and they will get it for their children. But we have to take that motivation and that drive to make sure that everybody has access to it.
I think as more and more African Americans start to get the computers at home or start to incorporate them in their daily lives, there will be a growing demand for more and more content that's relevant to the lives of African Americans.
Once we have access to the technology or the tools of technology, we will then begin to incorporate it into our everyday life, work life, private life, and home life, and that then you will begin to see more and more Puerto Ricans and Latinos involved in technology in ways that we haven't seen up to now.
Caucasian Americans are maybe generally more likely to have someone in their family who has access to a computer, or someone in their family who may own a business that uses a computer. So you may have a bit more access to the benefits of computers, but I really think that it's more so economic than racial. And once you expose people to the things that computers can do for them and how it can help them in various aspects of their life, I think that you know, a computer chip doesn't have a color.
This technology will be embraced once people believe that it's hip to embrace it. Right now, it's not seen as part of the fabric of the community.
My name is Stephen Rice. I'm 15 years old, and I live in Bushwick, Brooklyn, New York City.
Well, I would love to have a computer for Stephen, but as reality is, you have to do what's best for your household first. That means food, clothing, and shelter. A computer is like a luxury to us.
No, I do not have a computer.
Do you want to get a computer?
Not really, no. It don't matter to me. If I get one, I'll take it, but I don't want one.
People in the community don't look at technology or computers as being a real asset in their home.
You can see it's like using your computer, right, at school.
Yeah, but I don't use no computer at school.
So what about your curriculum?
I take whatever they give me.
Well, you can't go through life taking whatever people give you. You have to do what you want. You want to take computers, you should ask them.
I thought you knew I had a little shop.
I know about shop class, but I figured you was getting computers too.
8th grade was the last time I used a computer. So, I ain't used it since then.
Well, Stephen's enrolled in George Westerhouse. He's in the 10th grade. They have a lot of vocational studies for the children that keeps them occupied.
Schools aren't preparing the kids. There's not enough money. The world is changing. The economics is changing. The type of jobs that are available are changing, and we're still back where, you know, manual labor was an option, and it's not anymore. Where vocational school was an option, it's not anymore.
Right now, we are moving from one type of society, industrial, to another type of society, information society. But if we don't give people the skills to participate, be full participants in that information society, their economic plight is going to get worse and worse.
The issue of poverty prevents many people, you know, to really have access to the things that middle-class communities take for granted.
If you look at the schools and you go to other communities where youngsters are really doing well, not only do they have computers in the schools, but they have computers in their home.
My name is Cedra Durst, and I am 17 years old.
I've been using computers for a long time. I started, I think, when I was, if my memory serves correct, 4 years old.
Having a computer at home gives kids a major advantage when it comes to future career success. Cedra Durst lives in the heart of Silicon Valley, where her father is an executive at a high-tech company. There are 4 computers in Cedra's home. And Monte Vista High School, where she is a senior, has a technology-rich curriculum and state-of-the-art computer equipment.
I think being in Silicon Valley and being at a high-technology high school, it's almost assumed that you're going to go into a career related to computers and technology, simply because all the resources are here. That's what the focus on education is on. And most of the students have parents who are working for computer companies or some sort of technology company. And it's also where everything's headed right now. The economy, society in general, everyone's headed towards computers. So it seems like the perfect thing to do.
You've got people working at Microsoft, Cisco, Dell, who are becoming paper millionaires because of the skills they have. But the average person in this country who doesn't have those skills is not seeing his or her income rise as rapidly. Yes, we're all still doing well, and a rising tide does not necessarily lift all boats, but it's lifting enough boats that people feel comfortable. Increasingly, however, you're going to see that tide lifting some boats and taking them out to an entirely new reality and leaving some people behind on the shore.
When we look at issues of universal access, and I look vis-a-vis the Puerto Rican and Latino community, I don't even see us on the service ramp of this information highway. And so if you were to ask me whether we're living in a virtual ghetto, I would have to conclude by saying yes.
My name is Crystal Perez, and I'm 14 years old. I don't have a computer at home, but I want one. Hopefully, I'm gonna try to get one.
Unfortunately, we don't have a computer at home. Maybe in the future, I would like to purchase one. Financially, some people can't afford it. They have to make decisions like paying your rent or getting food in your table. So it's very hard sometimes. Yellow?
Yeah, when families, Puerto Rican and Latino families, are trying to survive on a day-to-day basis in terms of just basic sustenance, technology is not necessarily in the forefront of a family's life outside of the use of, let's say, the telephone.
This is our last social issues article. Did everyone write their introduction?
I think it's important for people to use a computer because it's technology. Technology is building up every day, so you never know what you're gonna have to learn to use.
And then I'm gonna give you time to work on your own. And I already have Crystal on a computer and Javier on a computer. And possibly we can see if there's any computers available in the library.
The computers in my school are in the library and in the classes. To do my homework, I have to go to the library, and when I can't have a computer to use, I can't really finish the paper and hand it in.
Universal access is great in theory, but when they go to sign up for use of a workstation and the wait list is so long, it really translates to no access.
Yes, I wish my school had more computers. That way it'd be easy for me and other kids to use the computers when we have to do our reports.
Are the efforts that schools and libraries making to deliver technology to students enough? No, I think that they're not. At the current time, specifically in large urban environments, you have an average of a 45-minute instructional period that students have access to a computer lab, and in a library we have half-hour time slots, and perhaps you can get one every day or one every other day. That's still not enough time to really become acclimated to the technology, understand it, and be able to use it effectively.
Thank you, Marcella. You will be next on the computer. Those of you that are on the computer right now, you will have 20-minute intervals.
Because we only have 4 computers, we may have just, let's say, 8 children at the computer, and we as a facilitator have to come to the front and teach the rest of the class a lesson.
What color? Black. No, the computers don't always work. When the computers don't work, it makes me mad. Because you want to write something up and you can't because they're busted. Right now we're having a problem with the printer. We're missing a few cords. So we're going to have to wait until we get the cords and we hook it up.
Technology is the great equalizer. What a joke. It's a total joke. I mean, you can't be equal if you don't have the equipment.
In more affluent communities, the children are more likely to use a computer as a discovery tool. They're developing the kind of mental skills that help them to go out and be leaders in our society. kids in more affluent communities are getting these kind of higher level thinking skill development experiences, and kids in poorer communities are at a risk because they're not having the enriched experiences that technologies like the internet can provide in a classroom. In poorer communities, the kids are doing primarily drill and practice. Computer asking question, child responding yes or no, right answer, wrong answer. What's the difference? Here, the computer is in control 80, 90% of the time. Here, the person is in control. The computer is just a tool. It is a tool to help you to solve a problem, to think, to move forward, to be a producer, to be an owner. Here, you're a consumer. And so we have to make sure that we don't limit some of our children who we know are some of the best and brightest in the world.
Computers are the wave of the future. Without a computer, you're nowhere. The computer is like how you control everything. If you don't know how to work the computer, you might as well say you don't know how to work nothing. Well, my name is Vincent Robert Bell, and I'm 11 going on 12. Yes, I'm very different from my friends. Some of my friends, they like to play basketball, I like to play baseball. Another example is I like computers, they like something different. They may like looking at fish. How I would train computers in my school is I would first find out how many kids are in each classroom and send that amount of computers to that class. Because it's like you have to be independent to learn. You can't be like all bunched up to learn. Word processing, no. Word processing. It's harder because one person want to do this, one person want to do that. It's hard for the main person to understand what the basic concept of the computer is.
One of the things we have found is that access begets usage. So it's not an issue of whether you want to use it or not, but rather whether you have access to it, because our data show very clearly that as soon as you have access, you use it.
In our district, I think we get the short end too much. You go someplace else, like I said, they have computer classes. They just have better schools for some reason, but it's still the public school system. What's the difference between this community and that community? You have just as many hard-working people in Bedford-Stuyvesant than you do in Borough Park or Bensonhurst. You're talking about kids. You should all be given the same opportunity to learn, just like anybody else. You see these things, and you just shake your head. What's wrong with us? Well, there's nothing wrong with us. We're fine. We just need opportunity.
Some believe the companies that are making so much money from the technology boom have an obligation to help create greater access in underserved communities.
It is appropriate for us to hold corporate America's feet to the fire and say, if you want to participate in these rewards, then you also need to ensure or take some responsibility for ensuring that everyone in this country has access.
Providing access could prove to be a sound investment, since the explosive growth of the technology industry has created a shortage of skilled workers. Technology companies currently import thousands of workers from abroad to fill specialized positions.
Why should we have to bring in 1 million people to take good, high-paying jobs? Wouldn't it be a much better investment to make sure we're training 1 million American boys and girls who are here today to fill those jobs over the next 20 years? We know it's there. It's kind of like a farmer that knows he's got land. You can either irrigate the land or you go out and buy crops. Why would you go buy crops when you can irrigate, plant, and grow your own?
Corporate America created this mess, and they have to live with it, essentially. And what's happening is it's backfiring on them because they can't fill the jobs to keep them going. So they created this whole industry, but they can't keep it thriving. And so now what they're doing is starting to look into communities that they never looked at before, and thinking that they know those communities, and thinking that if they plop a few cheap PCs in there, it's the great equalizer.
The challenge of bridging the digital divide, I think, is one that the public is really becoming aware of. And I think there are a number of ways that we can think about greater access for people who don't have access. And first and foremost, I think we have to think about all the places that access can take place.
So if you don't have a computer at home and you have limited access at school, where do you go? For thousands of kids, the answer is the Community Technology Center, or CTC. Throughout the country, CTCs provide computer access and training for both children and adults.
You guys seen the mock-up?
No.
This is one of the front pages that we have.
What we're trying to do is get technology where the kids really are, and then let them learn that technology is not just for nerds, it's not just for geeks, it's about them too.
I never thought I would be doing this, you know. That has definitely taught me how to be responsible and just respectable and just learn how to deal with different types of people.
Going through this course also gave me the self-confidence to know that I am teachable and that I am able to kind of go into the workforce and be comfortable. You know, the Urban League program definitely gave me that confidence.
When you go to a place like Plugged In, and you watch a kid who says, look, I was in a gang, or I was a graffiti tagger, or I didn't really know how I was going to fit in society, and all of a sudden you realize that this kid is contributing, and he's giving something back, and she is excited about what she can create, that's what makes this whole thing worthwhile. We've had some great success stories, whether it's Plugged In East Palo Alto, Playing to Win, which has been a model up in Harlem, or the Urban League. All of those programs have developed models. What they're doing is showing people how it works, how it should work.
Vincent teaches everybody he's the computer master. Now, you can't slow him down. He wants to learn more, especially when it comes to the computer. He gets excited when he gets around a computer. Or you even mention the word computers. He just jumps at it. He's so excited about it. There was no opportunity for the kids, unless they learned in school, to even be exposed to computers. Well, if you don't expose the kid to a computer, he's not going to have anything to do with a computer. It's like a video game. You put a video game in front of him, he'll sit there and he'll show you how to play it. Well, if you put a computer in front of him, after a while, they love it.
A resume is not that hard to do. Once you know how to do it, you should really be more experienced. Because sometimes, like, you can mess up. Even our teachers mess up sometimes.
Just the desire to learn about computers has motivated many of the youngsters. They certainly feel a lot more confidence in themselves and what they can do. And it's a very exciting, I think, time for us because technology is really introducing to these kids a whole new options that they didn't have before.
Diamonds in the rough. We have a lot of diamonds out here. They just need to be polished off. And I think that this technology, frankly, can serve as the new civil rights revolution for the future.
When you think about computers being the great equalizer, I think that sometimes we have the tendency to overstate the importance of information technology, because it will allow us to be all the things that we are, but better perhaps and more efficient and faster. What about the negative things that we are? You know, perhaps it will magnify those things as well. So the inequality that we face today in our society, if we aren't kind of forward-thinking, if we don't make sure that we're careful, then it may increase the inequalities that we have.
My name is Shaquana Davis. I'm 16 years old, and I live in Brooklyn, New York. My favorite thing I like to do is look at videos on BET and listen to music on radio and play on a computer.
All them deuces so she could get the card.
No, I don't have computers at my school, but I wish I had computers at my school. What you looking for?
Shaquana takes computer training classes and spends much of her free time at her local community technology center, the East Harlem Tutorial Program.
I like working on the computers. I like looking up music pages and printing songs out that I don't know so I can learn them, and to play games on the computer.
When Shaquana first came here, she wasn't motivated to go to school. She got into a lot of fights with her peers, and she was really moving from foster home to foster home. So we decided with her that she wanted to be in this program. We told her the rules and regulations. She agreed, And as she began going into this program and as the weeks went by, you saw a change in her behavior. The fighting ceased. The relationships between her and the foster parents were improving. She really was thinking differently about school. I think she felt that school in the beginning was not for her, that she couldn't learn, that she wasn't motivated, and I think this gave her some hope.
I worked on the computer today. I learned how to install memory in there. I installed a hard drive, a CD-ROM, and a modem, and I installed Windows 95 on the computer. Yes, I like repairing computers because I can learn the stuff on the inside.
Shaquana's introduction to computer technology has already spurred her to overcome some of the obstacles in her life. But in addition to the barriers created by the legacy of racism and her economic situation, Shaquana faces yet another hurdle. She's a girl. And so far, there are relatively few women in the world of technology.
Computer technicians look intelligent. They look smart, like they got brains. Most of the computer technicians are men.
There are a lot of dedicated people who have looked at the science workforce and seen that there are very few women and very few minorities working in science. And their idea and mine is that we need new ideas in science. We need new ways of looking at old problems. We need people to come up with new questions to ask of science and technology. And we'll only get that if we have people from various backgrounds.
Today, your job is going to be to draw a computer scientist. So I want you to think just a minute. What does that mean, computer scientist? Now, how did you think of the scientist?
I don't know. When I think of a scientist, I think of like an older guy with glasses and looking up facts on the computer.
Oh, look at that.
And he makes a lot of money, so he can buy new cars and has a nice old house and he's happy with his job.
You know, you say, what does a scientist look like? What does a computer repair person look like? You know, they'll almost always draw a white person, and it's always a man. And, you know, it's the same thing with girls. You know, what do they see? It's the same stuff they see in advertisements. It's the same things they see on TV.
Since you have a computer at home, do you think you could be a computer scientist?
I don't know.
You don't know?
If girls are not just literate in technology, but if they don't excel, if they aren't loving it, if they aren't going in there and feeling passionate about it, they are doing great damage to their futures.
If you drew a man computer scientist, I want you to raise your hand, please.
Girls already have a disadvantage when they enter school in terms of technology and science in particular, because it tends to be that boys still have more natural experience in those arenas. Boys are still the ones who play video games more than girls. Families who have boys are more likely to have computers. Boys are more likely to have computers in their rooms.
How come at homeroom you don't go to the computers when I say y'all can go to the computers? In the 7th grade, studies have found that girls typically drop back. They might have excelled in science and math forever, you know, 1st grade on, kindergarten on. But in around this age, puberty, around 12 years old, 13, for whatever reason, if it's because they don't want to seem smart or if they don't want to seem aggressive or pushy, the girls tend to step back.
I was doing pretty good in grade school, but 6th and 7th grade was kind of hard for me. I guess because I would hang out mostly with guys. I would sit there enjoying them on the stupid things that they would do. And this year I started hanging around more with girls, and like now I get my work done and I pay more attention.
Girls stepping back from technology and science often leads to decreased participation and enrollment in those classes.
My computer classes have always been traditionally almost all boys. Several years they were all boys.
In a programming class I had started off with 24 boys and no girls. Another class had 13 boys and 1 girl.
I had one class with 1 girl in it, another class with 3 girls in it, and I was just stunned. And I thought, there are so many smart girls in this school, there's no way this is right. It should be more balanced.
Guys see themselves as part of technology and girls don't. If a girl says, you know, I might be interested in programming, her friends will say, what, are you crazy? There are only boys in that class. If she has any kinds of brains at all, she's going to draw the correct conclusion. She doesn't belong there. Why should she go someplace where she's uncomfortable because she doesn't belong? It would be only the most resolute and motivated girl who is able to overcome that kind of a barrier. And that's not fair, because the boys don't have to overcome those barriers.
So let's go ahead and go to our groups. If you've forgotten.
A lot of times I'd walk into a classroom where computers were being used, and the teacher would say, the girls are using the computers. Everybody's using the computers. And then you walk up and you'd look at a lab group, and you'd listen to what they were doing, you'd watch what they were doing, and you'd realize that the kids had fallen into very gender-specific roles.
While her students at Fulmore Middle School in Austin, Texas, worked on a class science experiment, Vicki Dunleavy realized that their use of computers involved certain gender roles that she hadn't recognized.
Watch this. This is funny.
Today what I saw was that it seemed as though the boys really wanted to be the mouse keepers. They wanted to control the mouse, and that the girls wanted to be the keyboard operators. And I had never seen that. To create equity in the classroom, a teacher really has to be paying attention to every single thing that's going on. Once you're aware of what's happening, then you do intervene by saying, everyone's going to have a turn at this.
The girl who's using the mouse and fighting to use the equipment is me. And that's why I turned out to be a chemist, because I was willing to go head-to-head with the boys in trigonometry class and call out my answers. But there's very few of us, otherwise there'd be more women scientists.
What you see when you go into a classroom is that there tends to be a few boys, not all boys, but a few boys who get the lion's share of the teacher's attention. And they have a tendency to yell out, to not pay attention to the rules.
They tend to talk more than listen in class. It messes up your thinking because you're concentrating on one thing and then they start talking and then they just like mess you up because you're used to like a pattern on how you're thinking, and then when they talk it like breaks the pattern and then you have to start all over.
The computer class that I'm in like has boys and stuff, and I get my work done, but like I play with the computer and stuff, but it's that the boys always bug you and they're like always playing around with you and stuff and you can't get your work done. And with the girls, they'll like let you do what you want to do and you have more time to do it right there.
Acting like a fool.
Middle school is probably the hardest time for kids to stick out or to be different. It's a time when girls want to look like everybody else, they want to sound like everybody else, and they have a lot of pressure on them because of that to conform to a sort of flat norm of feminine behavior, to not stand out, to not raise their hands, to not yell out, but to be kind of nice and good and perfect and sweet.
I see girls trying to fit in with what they call normal and trying to be popular. And one of my friends who was in Girl Scouts with me, I've seen that happen completely. She used to be a complete individual, and I loved that about her. And then when she got into middle school, she felt that people couldn't accept her as that person she was. So she completely altered who she was and wears, clothes, cares about her hair, and doesn't stand up for what she believes in.
Girls often face yet another source of inhibition when it comes to technology: their teachers. Though few of them are aware of it, many teachers show a clear gender bias in the classroom.
The major problem with biased classroom behavior is that we all do it and none of us know we do it. It is below the level of conscious awareness for just about every teacher. Teachers aren't bigoted, they're not mean, they're not out to make girls suffer and favor boys. I mean, that's not what happens.
I need to have a model class, okay, and we're going to have a little lesson on how the World Wide Web works. And I need to have 2 men and 2 women. So Todd, I'll ask you to sit here and stay there, I think. So class begins, and I have our homework from last time to give back.
At a national conference on gender equity in the classroom, the tables were turned on these computer science teachers during a role-playing exercise.
Todd, I would really like to see you work harder. I know that you can do better than this. Okay, so let's see that next time. George, interesting use of multiple inheritance for the Hello World program, but a really nice job.
In the role play exercise, Alan treated me expecting a lot from me, as if I had ability and was not expressing it. I was sort of told in advance I was an underachieving male student who didn't have a lot of knowledge about the subject area. But even though I was wrong, I felt encouraged by Alan.
Some of the classic gender-biased behaviors are things like just standing closer to the boys, making more eye contact with the boys. When a boy answers a question, you engage him in follow-ups and you challenge him to defend his answers, for example.
I raised my hand, I had an answer, I said an answer, and the answer was right, and it was just kind of ignored, and it went over to one of the guys, and his answer was the same as mine, probably because he heard it, and it was a comment, a good comment to him, yet I was completely ignored. And I think it surprised me that, knowing that it was a setup, how much it hurt to be ignored that way.
You stayed with Todd. You stayed with Todd. He would say something and then you draw him out and ask him more. Extend, extend, extend.
And the two guys did not raise their hand very often, where Mike was sitting there, you know, politely raising her hand. You did recognize her time, but they did dominate the conversation, I thought. Yeah.
Your eyes were allowing the boys to answer questions. Just from your glance, you told them it's your turn to answer. So your eyes were negative towards the girls and positive towards the boys in an overwhelming amount. You were horrible.
Great, thank you.
I mean, I really felt the fact that you weren't looking at us, looking at this side of the room.
Sometimes we don't realize that the girls, we think they're confident, but we don't know what we're doing by not calling on them and giving them the response that they deserve also.
Well, if you extrapolate the progress women have made in science and engineering disciplines where they've been underrepresented, if you extrapolate that rate out, it's going to take about 550 years for equity to come about. I think that's too long for most of us to wait.
In response to the problems girls face concerning technology in the classroom, a growing number of teachers and parents around the country are creating situations where girls can use computers in an environment that feels safe and comfortable. In Austin, Texas, they started an after-school computer class called Tech Girls.
You know what you could do is that's much faster, just like...
We do have a wide range of girls in the class. They are interested in all kinds of things. They're everything from jocks and schoolgirls. We also have girls who are not exposed to computers except through Tech Girls. They don't have a computer class during the regular school day, and they don't go home to computers at night.
I joined because I like to get on computers. The only time I get on computers is when Dad take your daughter or children to work week. And I only get to do that at my mom's work, and that was like once a year. And so so when I heard about this, I wanted to join because I thought that I could get on the computer more and learn a lot more.
I have learned the HTML codes and how to make web pages because before I didn't know how to make a web page, and I learned how to go on the internet and search for things.
There is no reason that a girl could not do anything that a guy can do using a mouse and a keyboard. There is no reason, nothing at all in the equipment itself, only what's in your head that might keep you from doing it. And what I'm hoping to do with Tech Girls is break down those barriers in girls' heads.
Click there. Right, so that means it's highlighted. So now when it's highlighted...
Tech Girl students are also teachers, sharing their computer knowledge and skills with another generation of women.
Yeah, very good.
And there's an enormous sense of pride that they express. In the afternoons, I never know what they're going to come in and want to do on the computers, or they don't always want to follow a lesson plan that I've chosen for them. And in fact, they're writing their own lessons. They're out there in this sort of brave new world of technology.
Ladies, can I get you all to stop for just a minute?
and focus up here. I'd like to talk for just a couple of minutes. I'd like you to talk for just a couple of minutes about what you've been doing this afternoon. Can you tell us, first of all, why are you here today?
Well, because I'm 70 years old and I do not want to become obsolete, so I'm getting into computers.
All right, very good.
I think that's why Tech Girls is so wonderful, because it's a setting where girls are supported, where they have friends and other girls to talk to share similar situations, to have a forum to express their ideas, and along with learning the basis of technology.
Okay, you're down to the end, aren't you?
Hi there.
Hi,
how are you this afternoon?
Fine.
Did you come to get these too?
Yeah.
Well, they've been working really hard.
But there are mixed reactions to all-girl computer environments. Some observers are concerned that they don't prepare girls for the real computing world, which is currently dominated by men.
Let's say we make these girls really computer literate and very sophisticated and very knowledgeable and very assertive. Then they get back in the world with a bunch of male people who still think that girls should be docile and quiet and ignorant. This is a solution?
I'm not advocating that girls go to girls-only schools. I'm not even advocating that all classes be gendered. But I think that occasionally girls, particularly girls at this age, need a place that's girl-friendly, girl-safe, someplace they can just sort of be and not be on for guys.
All-girl computer clubs and classes offer one solution to gender bias in the classroom. But what happens outside of school? When a girl plays computer games or surfs the internet, how girl-friendly are those experiences likely to be?
I think using a computer game can be a very valuable introduction to computers because they provide an interesting, stimulating way of interacting with the machine that doesn't necessarily involve 1,000 buttons and 1,000,000 commands and all sorts of complicated things.
How'd you get set? Oh my God.
My first sort of real vivid memories of computers are playing like Pong on, plugged into a TV set and wanted to be able to see what was on the other side of the screen. Those combination of things sort of allowed me to learn a little in class and then teach myself a lot more on my own.
In terms of the play patterns of traditional computer games, the idea of having to die and start over seems really stupid and annoying to most girls. That kind of mastery doesn't have a lot of social currency for them. The way that girls and boys organize themselves socially and achieve their position in their social groups with their peers are pretty different. And when you study that and talk to kids about it, you learn things like the rules of competition, which are incredibly more subtle and complex for girls than they are for boys.
Game developers primarily make entertainment products which are of interest to them, and they're mostly men, and so as a result they make games that are of interest to men. That is a limitation on the field. Some people go beyond that, and of course now there's a group of people who are trying to make games specifically of interest to women or to girls.
Hi, I'm Barbie. Let's make some fun clothes for me to wear. Making clothes for me is really easy and fun.
When I started in the multimedia business in 1991, what I found was that I would go to meetings, I would go to conferences, and I would often be the only woman in the room. Part of the problem with the industry is that people had said girls don't like computers, they're afraid of technology, they're not really interested. Some people had said, well, we already tried that and it didn't work, and really what they had tried was doing a regular sort of a shoot 'em up video game and making all the characters pink.
Barbie fashion designer proved once and for all that girls will buy computer software. In its first 2 months on the market, fashion designer sold more than 500,000 copies.
And once they made that hit, it cracked open a lot of doors. It cracked open a lot of minds in the industry, because the success of Barbie told people who otherwise would not have given girls the time of day that there's money to be made here.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. How are you guys?
Hi.
You ready to go to work?
Yeah, we're ready.
All right, come on.
Barbie's success spawned numerous software companies whose products are aimed exclusively at girls. Companies like Girl Games use focus groups with their teenage customers to guide product development.
So what kind of computer games do you do?
We mainly do cosmopolitan makeover, and that's really fun because we look at all these like models who don't look that great, and then we make them look all perfect and everything.
Have you guys tried putting your own faces in?
Yeah.
What would make it cooler?
If you got to choose what they wore.
Oh, like clothes.
Yeah.
Because this is only a makeover. Let's talk about me. We had fun on the little makeover thing. The only thing was like the hairstyles weren't very realistic.
Welcome to the most awkward and embarrassing time of your life, puberty.
If you think thematically about what is relevant in a girl's life at that time, it's the growth and changing of her body.
Miss Hottie Body here.
Migrating from her family nucleus to friends, and coming with that is learning how to have romantic relationships as opposed to just regular friendships.
Look at this new kid. He's gorgeous. And he lives right next door to me.
Several of the early games for girls that came out concentrated on issues involving clothing, makeup, hair, and teenage angst of various sorts that keeps women feeling uncomfortable about themselves. And I realize that young girls, teenage girls, pay a lot of attention to those things and are concerned about them, but it seems to me that games can be more than that.
That looks cool.
To the extent that expectations create realities. If you issue a lot of software for girls that concerns dating and shopping and makeup, you have just delivered a powerful message to these girls that that's what they should be interested in.
Certainly a lot of energy in girlhood is spent on developing one's social persona, having relationships with peers, understanding what it means to have friends, looking at issues like loyalty and trust and exclusiveness, inclusiveness. So there's a whole facet of girlhood that's really devoted to that kind of play.
Purple Moon's first game was called Rocket's New School, and it's about all the problems this little girl encounters going to her new school. And the next game in the series is called Rocket's Tricky Decision, and it's about the issues that she faces in trying to get invited to a party.
What other party?
Oh, she didn't get invited. Max's party is going to be so cool, Whitney. He's invited.
And what happens if she gets invited to more than one on the same night? And frankly, I have to ask myself what's next. You know, Rocket gets pimples.
I'm not trying to please the adult male reviewer or the radical person who has an agenda about what girlhood is like. I am in dialogue with little girls. That's who I care about. And as long as I'm hearing them tell me that my company is giving them what works for them, I'm happy.
I think it has not yet been tested whether that's the only way to get girls interested in computing. I think there are other ways of getting girls interested in computing that are about larger dreams, larger aspirations, larger fantasies.
If the classroom can be difficult and computer games controversial, is there any computing environment that's both friendly and exciting for girls? A growing number of girls are finding what they want online.
Okay, you translated. That's pretty cool.
The idea that you can get online and communicate with all these different people and learn about all these different things is a lot more interesting to girls than sitting in front of a TV or a computer and battling a monster. They want to get online and communicate and share their ideas and feel supported and supportive.
The thing I think is fun about the internet is that I can talk with friends and I can write to friends and I can share my schoolwork and tell them about my life and they tell me about their life in Pakistan.
What I love about being online and being on the internet is that there is so much information and that you can access so much that you can do for so many different things, to research, just for pleasure, to communicate with somebody and learn and share knowledge.
But knowledge isn't the only thing that can be shared online. The vast online world contains content that is not girl-friendly. That's why Girl Tech was created.
At the time when we started the company, my daughter, Jackie, was 8 years old. And she'd always invented with me. So we went to the computer and we typed in the word girl on a search engine. And remember, Jackie's 8 years old and she's sitting on my lap. And we got smut on the internet, okay, inappropriate content. So we decided to create our own search engine. We figured out how to do it. So now we have a great search engine. If you type in the word girl, you're going to get very appropriate content for your daughter, or your daughter's going to get some great content.
Every day, there is more and more content designed specifically for women and girls. Chick Click, a distinctly pro-girl site, provides an alternative voice and some attitude.
Through Chick Click, we're trying to show examples of girls and women out there that are producing really great content and doing things online, and they're fun, they're interesting, and kind of tear down the myth that technology is geeky male profession, because it's not, and there's a lot of girls out there doing really great things online and in the technological field.
Girls exploring the internet is very important because they get to do the exploration without any boundaries. They also can, with the right instruction, compose a mental picture of what the internet or the World Wide Web really is. And once they have that understanding, they have something that many other people, even their teachers, don't have.
We want girls to be passionate about technology, and we think we have a process in place that can help that. We show examples of girls that are creating exciting places online, put them all in one space, and hope that when a new girl comes to visit, that she's going to want to participate. That's when she'll go in and say, how do I create my own site?
I think that the more comfortable girls are using it, and the better materials that are on the computer for them to access, the more likely it is that they'll feel comfortable in thinking of themselves as a technical person, as someone who could be a computer science major, as someone who could be a programmer.
I got interested in constructing and designing websites because I wanted to contribute to the vast information that was out on the World Wide Web already, and thought that using the internet would be a terrific way, and it would give me experience in how to construct websites for my future.
29,384 matches returned.
There is no conspiracy. There are no evil men keeping computing all to themselves. It's not the way it works. This is a situation, a world which we did not create, which we reflect like mirrors. And we can change the picture if we choose.
None of us would consciously choose to leave more than half a generation on the wrong side of the digital divide. Yet that's what we're in danger of doing if we continue to ignore the barriers faced by girls and by those children of color, both boys and girls, for whom access to technology is proving so difficult. It's not just a question of fairness, it's also a matter of the quality of life we all want for our future, because that quality will be diminished by the absence of every child we leave behind.
Let me ask this question. Which would make a better computer scientist, a man or a woman?
I think either a man or a woman will make a good computer scientist if they're dedicated, if they are willing to work hard, and they do a good job.
This is my computer scientist. Her name's Linda.
It's not fair to be told, like, you can't do this and you can't do that because you're a girl. Girls need the same chance to make their dreams come true as much as the guys do.
Information is power, and equal access to computers will get you that information. And I think no longer will people be in the dark. People will learn about investing. They will learn about what's going on in their neighborhoods. They become more interested, so then they seek more information. So then they vote more, and they run for office more. I mean, it's just like this little pebble effect, right? It gets you, the more you learn, the more you want to know. It's natural. It's human nature. And I think that technology allows that to happen.
If you look at the other ways that America had tried to integrate access and equality and the track record it's had, I think we would have to look from that point and determine whether technology once again is being used as a panacea to achieve something that America has been trying to do for so long and has yet been successful.
Our children won't be marketable, and if they don't have access to the computers. And you will find them taking on the jobs that no one else wants to take on, which is working in a fast food restaurant, cleaning behind someone else. And I don't think that we have time to waste or time to lose. I think that if we want our children to have access to these jobs, we got to get them ready. We got to do it now. We have to stop making the excuses. We've got to do our own reality check, and we have to make a commitment.
What we do in the next 5 to 10 years will shape their lives for the next 60 to 70 years. And so it's critically important to make the investment in our people now.
There's going to be plenty of things that I need to learn. I'm going to need a computer sooner or later.
What's important is not the computer. What's important is that the world it can open up to you. And, you know, with that computer and with that internet access that you perhaps could spend, $600 for, you can give your child the world, and what parent doesn't want that?
Well, Vincent, he's the computer master. His brother Victor goes to Boys and Girls High School, and he's doing program. He's learning how to write programs. So I can't wait till they both get together. Could be Bill Gates all over again, who knows? I hope.
The rise of digital technology has triggered a new American revolution. So new that we still have more questions than answers about what it will mean. But we do know that the prosperity generated by this technology is already great enough to give every American school child both the access and the training they need to achieve digital literacy. We already have the means to get everyone across the digital divide. If that happened, the divide itself would disappear. And that is a revolutionary idea. To learn more about the digital divide, visit PBS online at the internet address on your screen. Funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
To learn more about the digital divide, visit us online at ZDTV.com.
Hello, I'm John C. Dvorak. You've just seen a special 2-hour documentary on the digital divide. The show first aired on PBS, but this is an issue that's especially important to ZDTV and our viewers. So we want to hear what you think. Coming up next, you can join our special panel of pundits in debating what should be done about the digital divide. There are lots of ways you can take part in this special interactive Silicon Spin. Send us email by clicking on the Digital Divide feedback link on siliconspin.com, or you can join our live chat at ZDTV.com. In the chat room, you'll find a place called the Netcam Cineplex. If you have a Netcam, that's where to go to ask us a live question on the air. Or you can just call us at 1-888-989-7879. Stay with ZDTV for this debate on the digital divide.
Computers and our children. Why isn't there access for all? Chat live right now at ZDTV.com. Click on the digital divide. Big thoughts, big theories, big thinkers.
The internet is a constantly evolving web, but what should it become? Find out where Vint Cerf, one of the net's birth parents, says the most important tool of our age should be headed.
Big thinkers. Wednesdays at 10:30, 9:30 Central on ZDTV.
This week on ZDTV, we made it through Y2K, but what's next?
Find out from Vince Cerf, co-creator of the Internet, on this week's Big Thinkers. Hey, Sinbad's dropping by. Tune in and take a look at online resources for Black History Month, Friday on Call for Help. Do you want to be part of a TV show? Well, here's your chance. Send your submissions to ZDTV's newest show, You Made It. Go to ZDTV.com for all the details. That's what's happening at ZDTV and ZDTV.com. Amaze yourself.
So you've got the best e-commerce website on the net, right? Prove it. Enter the UPS Merchant of the Week contest and you can win free promotion on ZDTV. Who has the coolest design? The best customer service? Register your site and let our viewers judge. Your .com could be featured on ZDTV for a whole week. The Merchant of the Week contest is on now. Register at ZDTV.com. Click on the Merchant of the Week.
New TV? Yeah. Watch this.
RCA's experts understand you want the sharpest picture possible. So we developed the RCA digital monitor and receiver. The best picture today and unsurpassed high definition for tomorrow. RCA, changing entertainment again.
Miss Johnson, Miss Johnson! Miss Johnson! I gotta go to the bathroom!
Some things you just shouldn't have to wait for. Log on to aria.com and apply for instant approval on ARIA Visa. Get the lowest introductory APR available and valuable rewards.
This is killing me.
So why wait? Apply online today for instant approval on ARIA Visa.
Opportunity for all requires something else today, having access to a computer and knowing how to use it. That means we must close the digital divide between those who've got the tools and those who don't.
That's President Clinton in his State of the Union address on bridging the gap between the high-tech haves and have-nots. Hello, welcome to this special live hour-long edition of Silicon Spin. Today's topic, the digital divide. I'm your host, John C. Dvorak, and we're here with a special live audience, and we'll give them a chance, that's them over there, we'll give them a chance to ask questions later in the show. Before we introduce today's pundits, we want to tell you how to send us your opinions and questions for this live presentation, and there are 4 ways to do it. Email us your questions and comments from the feedback link at siliconspin.com. You can also call us at 1-888-989-7879. That's 1-888-989-7879. And if you want instant gratification, log on to zdtv.com/chat to join a live conversation about the digital divide. And if you're in the chat room and you have a netcam, go to the Netcam Cineplex to place a live netcam call to the studio. I think we'll pick most of them up today. Let's meet our panelists. Joining us live from Washington, D.C., Congressman Jesse Jackson, Jr., Democrat from Illinois. He sits on the House Appropriations Committee, serving on the Subcommittee on Labor, Health, and Human Services and Education. In our studio, Larry Irving, President and CEO of UrbanMagic.com, a net portal for the African American community. He's a former Assistant Secretary of Commerce. On my left is John McGraw, Chairman of the Republican Party, California Republican Party. He's also a partner in Hatchery Works. David Friedman's over there on the far right, law and business professor at Santa Clara University. He's also written several books on economics. And finally, David Bolt, the producer of this PBS documentary, The Digital Divide, which aired right before this program. He also authored a book on the subject. Welcome to you all. Class, race, gender, geography, all have been blamed for fostering a technological underclass. Right now, whites and Asians are at least 3 times as likely to use the web as blacks and Hispanics. Critics say minorities are not getting the hands-on experience needed for a high-tech job. At least one Silicon Valley CEO strongly disagrees.
Silicon Valley is one of the most unprejudiced places I've ever been. Workers of any race, color, nationality can get a job if they're qualified for it, and if not, not.
And if not, not. Congressman Jackson, your father has been just as vocal on the other side of the issue. What do you think is wrong with calling Silicon Valley unprejudiced?
Well, Silicon Valley has a number of issues that are reflective of the society in general. Let me first begin, John, by thanking and congratulating David on what I thought was an outstanding PBS series on the digital divide. I've not seen anything yet that is more comprehensive on the nature of the problem. I have tried my very best to sum this issue up before members of Congress by suggesting that it can probably be looked at in two spheres. The first sphere is the infrastructural sphere, which includes how do we wire these classrooms, outdated technology, how quickly the technology is changing, and how structurally and systematically many of our children who are using terrible technology are being systematically uneducated outside of the loop of that process. But then there's the educational divide. We saw that best when we saw teachers who are having problems integrating the technology in teaching their classes. We also see it in a society in broader as we move from an industrial-based society to an information-based society. Many former steel workers and those who worked in heavy industry in this country are having a significant problem making and bridging this divide. And so there are a number of critical issues in this area that confront our country, and I hope we can arrive at some bipartisan and some bicultural solutions so that every American can truly participate.
Does anybody here see any other issues that that he didn't bring up in this that may have been brought forward by the documentary?
I thought that the whole idea of a digital divide was fundamentally bogus, that there are real problems, but the real problems are with education, not with computer education. And a person who has ended up with a good education is going to be able to get a job, and if he needs to use a computer, he'll learn to use the computer in a week or so, because most of the uses don't require that you be a programmer, just that you use some particular tool. And somebody who's been badly educated isn't going to get well educated because there happens to be a computer in his classroom. I think computers are useful tools, they're useful resources, but the fundamental problem is not a problem of the technologically literate and the technologically illiterate. The fundamental problem is people who have been badly educated in a rather poorly functioning educational system and people who have had the good luck somehow to get educated in spite of the education.
I'm about to go about going crazy here. First, there's about 7,000 things that are wrong with that last statement, but one of the problems is we're focusing on digital divide is just an educational problem. It's an economic problem. Last week, John McCain raised $1 million on the internet. He's organizing his campaign around the internet. If you're not on the internet, you can't be part of the same political process. More and more people 40% of equity trades in this country today, this morning, from 9 to 5, we're online. You're outside of the economy. You want to buy a travel ticket cheaper? You go online. You want to see a movie cheaper? You go online. You want to buy a book or record and not pay sales tax? You go online. It's not just about education.
Sales tax you bring into the picture. Well, by the way, I did a research or I'm working on a research project now, and it turns out if you do a lot of traveling and you start doing some research, you really don't get those good of deals online except for those occasional weekend things.
ITAsoftware.com. Any plane trip you're going to take, go there first. And I don't have any stock in them. They're not part of my new website, but go there.
Well, John, you asked earlier about the series, and I think Congressman Jackson did a great job in encapsulating it. But I think there's two parts to the divide that I would basically break it down to. One is a question of access, and a lot of the energy gets focused on access issues, as well they should be, because if people don't have access to these tools, particularly young people, their futures will be affected. But there's a whole other part to the divide, and we spend a lot of time in the series talking about it. All those issues that arise once you have the boxes and wires, which is a much more complex and long-term discussion. So I think you have to look at both of them. Otherwise, it just becomes a simple exercise in discussing whether people have computers or not, and that's only part of the issue.
Well, one of the things that I have mixed feelings about some of the issues that were brought up myself. And one of the things I noticed is that there seemed to be, at some point, the way that the documentary was handled, there was like a point where I'm saying, are these people talking about education or vocational training for getting a job in Silicon Valley? Because there seemed to be a lot of the buzzwords that you hear the industry use. In fact, it was almost like a promotional piece on the way some people were talking about it, and it was as though they were, they're training people to get jobs in the industry so when they get out of school they can go right to work in the information economy. Meanwhile, people aren't getting courses in ethics and some of these things that you'd expect them to, that used to be a kind of a traditional thing to learn about. And then they wonder why these guys who graduate from school being trained in the computer industry go out and make millions of dollars and never give back to the community, and they've never been taught one thing about ethics or giving back or social responsibility.
But that's
not sure that courses in ethics make people ethical.
Well, at least they have less of an excuse.
The place where I agree with you, though, is I think it's true that that the program tended to confuse two different issues. One of them is what you have to know about computers in order to be an ordinary user, what you're talking about in the net. And the other is what you have to know about computers in order to be employed in the computer industry. And the computer industry is a wonderful industry, and I live in Silicon Valley, but it employs a very small fraction of the workforce. So it is true that lots of jobs require that you be able to use a computer the same way you use an automobile. But you don't have to know how to fix automobiles in order to do that.
I think we're confusing things here, though. We're talking, the Department of Labor says that today, 70% of the jobs in America require some conversancy with digital technology. If you're not talking about, and after all, most American high school graduates do not get a BA. Most American high school graduates do something else than get a BA in this economy. What are they going to do? So if you have a situation where you've got large numbers of young people going into an information age economy, they don't have a college to mediate that experience for them, like the one you teach at, then what do we do? You can call it vocational education, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but we have to do something with our educational system to address the kinds of skills our young people will have going into the modern economy.
And even going into college, you need to be able to do the same research. There are people, if you go into a Northwestern, a Stanford, University of Santa Clara, and you can't do research at the same level that your classmates can because they've been using technology, you're going to be at a competitive disadvantage in school. Your grades are going to suffer. Your ability to get into those schools is going to suffer.
Well, I agree with that.
The issue
Last comment.
Obviously, the issue here is, there was part of the thing, it's really not the digital divide in terms of what people think of, which is the delivery of hardware. Certainly that continues to come down. We see all sorts of private initiatives. Ford Motor Company, Delta this last week announced $5 a month computers for their employees. It's not the delivery. It is the delivery of the educational use of the tool and not particularly the tool itself. And that's really what the debate needs to be focused on, not the hardware.
Well, apparently Jesse wants to say something.
John, I just want to say that it's clear from the presentation this evening that technology should be used as a tool and not as a crutch. And I think there's probably nothing, at least for me, more moving than to watch on the one hand some young students who went to a local pond and were able to save it based upon statistics that they were able to gather over the course of a 3-year period. That was very convincing for the local board that they spoke before, and they were able to do some remediation for a pond that was deteriorating. But then at the same time, don't forget the young African-American male who stood on the corner and sat there and said, what do I need a computer for? If I had one, I'd like to have it, but what am I going to do with it? That is part of the structural problem that is both educational, it's economic, it's also cultural, and it probably is bringing to light, in light of how the economy is growing, some very serious problems that exist in the distribution of resources in this society.
Well, regarding that pond, I wonder how effective it would have been had they not had a camera crew rolling, watching their every move. Let's take a quick break, but remember, you can join in our discussion by going to ZDTV.com/chat, and coming up, we'll talk about computers in our classrooms. Are they taking the place of real learning? And we'll take your phone and netcam calls. But before we get to that, here's some email from our viewers.
My school is net.
Silicon Spin is sponsored by CDW, your direct solutions provider. CDW, computing solutions built for business.
A typical day for the IT manager. Everyone wants everything now. Luckily, there's CDW, your direct solutions provider. CDW uses 50,000 top-name products to give you complete systems, including custom configuration and pre-installed software. Why get hung up in work when CDW is here to make life easier? CDW, computing solutions built for business.
Once you've experienced the Sony home entertainment universe, nothing else seems to matter. But first you need to put one together, and shopping for a home system is something Sony can help you do. So just call 1-877-392-SONY, and we'll send you a free personal home entertainment planner which includes a buyer's guide, so you'll know exactly what you need to know before you shop. The planner also comes with a complete listing of all the products that make up the Sony home entertainment universe. To get started on yours, call toll-free 1-877-392-SONY, and we'll help you through the process.
Do you have to hit some golf balls?
Sure.
You're a young guy, right? How old are you?
I'm 36.
Now, are you at all concerned about your financial future, or are you so young it doesn't occur to you to worry about it at this point? I don't want to make you worry.
Well, I am concerned.
You're out there in the fairway, and you've had a pretty good wood shot, but you need to select your next tool. Same thing with investing. You've got to have the right tools. Now, E-Trade, for example, gives you an incredibly valuable tool. You can sit down at your computer and get information about how to invest in mutual funds anytime, night or day.
Our exclusive Power Search tool screens over 5,000 mutual funds. Choose your criteria, and it instantly provides a customized list of funds that match your goals, many with no loads. And best of all, Power Search is free.
Does it sound good?
Sounds great.
And if you sign up now, E-Trade will put $75 in your account.
Maybe I'll just stick to investing.
Computers and our children. Why isn't there access for all? Chat live right now at ZDTV.com. Click on the digital divide.
Just imagine being linked to a source of information, to a global internet adventure. Now, there's a new television network, ZDTV, your home for entertainment, explaining the power of computers and the internet. ZDTV, amaze yourself.
Welcome back to Silicon Spins, our special presentation, reading, writing, arithmetic, and roaming the internet. It's now the 4 R's. In a State of the Union address, President Clinton talked about the need to bring schools online.
We know we must connect all our classrooms to the internet, and we're getting there. In 1994, only 3% of our classrooms were connected. Today, with the help of the Vice President's E-Wait program, more than half of them are. And 90% of our schools have at least one internet connection.
Meanwhile, best-selling author Tom Wolfe says, hold on there. He told an educational conference we need to stop installing PCs in classrooms and start giving students basic information, like perhaps math skills. 12th graders in the U.S. consistently rank near the bottom of industrialized nations in math scores. John, are computers and net access in the classroom really the answer?
No, not at all. Again, the whole debate here needs to be focused on the educational system, not on the delivery of a box or a tool. I mean, computers are certainly, I would argue, can be an enhancement to the curriculum, but they're certainly not a substitute for teachers. I think there's pretty much broad agreement that the educational system in this country, at least in the lower grades, is fundamentally bankrupt and
dreadful.
Yes, absolutely, and something needs to be done about it. Throwing a computer on a desk is not going to teach a child how to read or write or do mathematics.
But why are we sitting with false choices? It's a totally false choice. It's not about giving a child the ability to do math or giving a child the ability to learn a computer. Why can't, it's the richest country in the history of the world. Why can't we teach our children how to use computers and have basic math skills? And that computer, in my experience, and I've been all over this country and really all over the globe, if you use a computer well, if you train the teacher to use a computer, and that teacher knows how to work with the computer, she can make her students better mathematicians. They can give them more robust reading experience, can teach them something about history they couldn't have learned just from a book. We're making false choices here. Let's give our children the best possible education, and that includes using computers to educate them.
Let me see if I can answer your question. The reason we can't do a good job of educating our children is because the we in question is the government and not you and me. I can do a good job of educating my children. I bet you, I don't know if you have children, but I bet if you have children, you can do a good job of educating them. And I bet that both of us could find people who could.
Better than a trained professional educator? I don't think I could. I disagree with that. I mean, give me a trained professional educator. I'd rather go to a teacher than go to you. Nothing personal, although you are a teacher. So, but based on what I'm hearing now, I think I'd still rather go to almost any other teacher. I don't think it's that difficult to for us to look at most parents are not going to be able to teach their kids at home. So if we're not going to homeschooling, we're going to have some type of school. We're going to have schools, let's give them the best possible tools for our children.
Just a minute. First, the reason people are going to homeschooling is because the alternative, which is free, paid for by their tax money, is as bad as it is. I'm not arguing that homeschooling is the best solution. My point is only that simply having enough money doesn't solve the problem of a set of institutions that are very badly designed for what they do.
Nobody's disagreeing with that.
But as far as beyond that, I mean, the sense in which I'm not disagreeing, as I was telling you earlier, the end of this summer I was wiring the little school my kids go to with his own little Ethernet and setting up the Macintoshes.
Kids to have access to technology.
It's all about tools. It's all about what kinds of tools are we going to have our children have. And I don't see any point. You can point to bad math scores, bad reading scores. There's a plethora of educational issues, and they all need to be addressed. But I haven't met a single professional educator who said, okay, and the solution, therefore, is no access to technology. That's simply not so. You have to add a new basic. In addition to reading, writing, and arithmetic, you need access to technology to exist in a 21st century economy. And we can't pose this as a false...
I mean, there was some talk show back in Gutenberg's day saying, oh, this book thing, it's a passing fancy. Why give our kids books? The old slate is just as good. Let's draw a line in the sand. I mean, it's the craziest thing in the world.
In Gutenberg's time, that was true, given the price of books. It was not a sensible educational strategy.
Let's go. We got our net cam working here, and on the line is John. Thanks for joining us. What's your question there?
I just had a quick question for the panel. I'm involved in a very real situation where my best friend is an English teacher just around the corner from that new technology high school in Napa. And he is trying to teach English in a classroom where he has many internet computers already set up, and he doesn't have enough money to buy the books that he needs to teach Huckleberry Finn, The Great Gatsby. You know, his job is to teach reading novels. And he's actually looking at the possibility of selling his computers to get the money in his budget to buy textbooks. And how are we going to deal with that? It's, again, the education in the schools. How do we deal with swinging the pendulum too far one direction? Where's the art department, the welding shop, the machine shop, the art, you know, all the other things that you go to school for?
Let's throw that one to Congressman Jackson.
Well, I may not necessarily have the answer to that question, but I think it's a profound one. Certainly where the resources are available in some school districts, we see through the passage of certain propositions and certain levies the ability for some schools to provide high technology computer laboratories in those classrooms. But those same schools oftentimes don't have a school library or don't have a swimming pool or don't have a gym or an athletic team. I think the documentary also made that very clear. And so clearly a balance needs to be struck. By the way, my understanding is this broadcast is originating from the West Coast. It's very late here in Washington, and when I'm not here in Washington trying to cast votes, one of the things that I enjoy doing is fishing. If you can use the analogy that a computer is simply a fishing pole, I've not seen many successful fishermen jump into a water and literally grab a fish. We need computers because young people need the tools for which to fish. However, the temperature of the water, the depth of a bobber, the depth of hooks, the type of bait that you use determine the caliber and quality and kind of fish that you may be fishing for in any given pond. And so there are a number of things that you need to know that no computer can possibly teach that only comes from decent instruction, from people who have fished before you, from teachers who are well trained, who are functioning in an environment that they can take advantage not only of computers but other tools that are very necessary to help our children not only with their academic skills but also with their socializing skills.
I'll tell you, I like that fishing thing. I'm going to use that analogy. I like that a lot.
Let's go fishing sometime.
Yeah, in Illinois probably. Do you guys have any comments about the question from the net cam?
Well, I think I can speak to that example, and it gets posed a lot. I don't know of a single person who's working around digital divide issues that would argue for the elimination of textbooks in order to install computers in a classroom. It's madness. So I think in a school district or an educational situation where you've got a dynamic where a teacher has to sell computers to buy books, I would say that the entire strategy that they approached was wrong in the first place. It's really not, and this happens again and again, and Larry, I think, said it eloquently a few minutes ago. It's a false dichotomy. It's a false choice to say you have to pick one or the other. At the beginning of the 21st century, we have to have both.
Isn't there a budgetary situation that's involved in this, though? Because at one point in the documentary, somebody brought up the point that, you know, we've got like mediocre teachers that are underpaid. Why don't we just spend some more money on the teachers and get the quality of the person up scaled a little bit, and then, you know, where would that money come from if it's all being dumped in technology? I think there was some complaints about that.
Well, William Ruckhiser, who's in the audience tonight, says it best in the program. Bringing boxes and wires to the schools is just the beginning. Teacher training, maintenance and technical support, curriculum integration, all these things emerge as critical parts of the divide, and not just boxes and wires.
We're gonna find out more about that. Coming up on Silicon Spin, who's responsible for bridging the digital divide? Plus, even though we're here with a live audience, we want your input. We'll show you how to contact us in a few moments.
How can you bring the world closer to you? Call Earthlink Sprint, America's leading internet service. You'll get direct, high-speed internet access. More local access numbers across the U.S. and Canada than any other ISP. All the help you need when you need it. Oh, yeah.
Now I can put my work out there for everyone to see.
Join now and you'll get a free digital video camera. You'll be able to email videos and pictures with sound to family and friends right over the net. Earthlink doesn't make you wait or hold you back. All my favorite stuff shows up automatically. Earthlink was chosen as America's best ISP by PC Magazine. So why not sign up now and get your free digital video camera? Join more than 1 million people who have already made the move to Earthlink Sprint. We'll even give all your friends your new email address. Just call and bring the world home. After all, it is your internet. Oh, yeah.
Tom and Audrey Darcy just bought 21 acres, on which they planned to build their dream house. But if they had professional advice, they may have invested differently, and they'd break ground a lot sooner.
See how advice and timely research can help you reach your goals. Call Solomon Smith Barney at 1-800-EARNS-IT, extension 310, and get your free special report, Top Picks 2000. You'll find the top stock picks of our award-winning research analysts in over 90 industries. Our outlook on the economy and interest rates. Which stocks we believe will offer the most earnings growth potential in 2000, and which will benefit from developing trends. See how to be a better investor in the new millennium. Call 1-800-EARNS-IT, extension 310, for your special report today. See how we earn it. Solomon Smith Barney.
Welcome back to Silicon Spin. Corporations, the government, the people, who's responsible for closing the digital divide? Some employers are taking a hands-on approach. Ford Motors, for example, is giving employees free computers. Some other companies are taking an even wider view.
A word that's on a lot of people's lips and a lot of stories that you read today about the coming digital divide. Are we creating sort of a new set of two societies, those that have access to technology and the internet and those that don't? One of the things that we will stand for, and I think makes me proud to be associated with all of these gentlemen, is the fact that this company, I think, will be one of the leaders in terms of closing that digital divide, putting this new powerful medium in the hands of all Americans and indeed all peoples around the world.
Hey, some AOL Time Warner. Talk is cheap there. President Clinton's 2001 budget includes a multi-billion-dollar tax incentive to encourage companies to help minorities and the poor access the net. David Friedman, many people are talking or without basic items like food. Should the government in this era be subsidizing computers?
I don't think the government should subsidize computers, but I also don't think it is true that many people in this country are literally without food. As my wife likes to say, the clearest evidence that the urban poor are not literally starving is how tame the pigeons are.
You don't think there's anybody starving in this country then? I mean, I'm reminded of the one time that, I forgot, it was on the Johnny Carson show some years ago, and there was some old woman sitting there, and he brought something up about poor people, and her comment was just fiddlesticks. She just basically didn't believe it.
There are clearly people who are poor. There are people who have very poor protection against crime and who have very poor schooling, both services provided by the government. But I don't think that literal starvation is a serious problem. If you work out the arithmetic of what it costs to get enough calories to avoid starving, you're talking about a few $100s, not a few $1,000s a year. And there are lots of places where free food is given away. The problems with the poor are not, look at poor areas. You don't see skeletal people. You see people who are in fear of crime. You see people who aren't educated. You see people who are miserable in lots of ways. There are many things wrong with...
All right, Larry, don't let it... Come on.
What's wrong is not that people are literally starving.
Let's go back to the question, because first of all, I disagree. There are people in this country who are hungry. There are far too many people in the country this rich that are as rich as we are. We don't have to have any hungry people. We have some. Many people go to sleep hungry every night. But with regard to the question, there is not a multi-billion-dollar tax giveaway to get computers. What we're talking about is trying to prime the pump. If you look at the totality of the president's program, it's to train teachers so that they can train our students. It's to get technology into public institutions. It is to use pilot programs to learn what's the best way to get technology in home. We have a problem. We have a problem that if you are poor, if you are less educated, if you're in rural America, if you are a minority, you are less likely to have a computer at home than if you're white and you're affluent. We have a 60-year-long tradition of making sure that every American has a telephone in their home. It's called the Universal Service Program. Nobody in America disagrees that we should all have phones in our homes. 95% of us have phones in our home, and at least partially because of government policy. What we're saying now is the internet and computer technology and networking us is going to be as important in the future as the telephone was. Our forefathers were prescient. They said in 1934, let's try to get ubiquitous telephone access. We're trying to be just as prescient in Washington now in terms of saying we're going to need to use the computer the way our parents used the phone.
Well, I would agree that certainly if we use tax incentives to make corporate America a little more philanthropic than they normally would be, that's fine. But I really just don't think it's a government policy to determine that we need a computer in every house. I mean, certainly I would agree that the market will drive that. People's need or want to get jobs or need or want to learn will certainly drive that. We've never seen anything, the cost of a commodity like a computer drop so quickly. I mean, certainly even quicker than television, even quicker than television, even quicker than VCRs. I mean, the cost of computers, I mean, every day continues to drive.
VCRs are pretty cheap.
You can get a VCR for $79 now.
No, certainly.
Or less, actually. You go to
certainly, and I believe that probably in the next year to 18 months we'll be getting computers at very low cost.
And you get a phone for $5, and it's still we got to remember something. One out of every 5 low-income African Americans don't have a phone. Bushwick, Brooklyn, we have 72% telephone penetration. We have Native American reservations where 1 out of 3 families have a telephone. You can buy a phone for $5. The point is, we still have pockets that don't use technology, and we as a nation are still trying to get folks to have access to that. What the president's saying is, just as we've had policies to add people on telephone network, let's get them on the computer network.
Actually, while on the subject of phones, we have a phone call here. Tom, what's your question?
Sorry, Jesse.
No problem, Larry.
We have a phone call. Tom?
Yes.
There you are.
I guess one question I would have is, in education policy, federal funding for education has never been really supported. And what I'm wondering is maybe there needs to be a discussion about federal funding for education and technology, because obviously when there are schools funded by regional support and that school is typically poor, then their school is going to have lack of funds for not just computers but math skills. And if you look at East St. Louis, for instance, which is 98% black, they can't even afford books or textbooks. So how are they going to get this kind of technology as well as math, as well as just learning how to read when they can't even have books?
Sounds like a question for the congressman.
Most recently, a federal judge in Decatur, Illinois, ruled that there is no federal right to education in this country. And I never really thought about it in the context of a federal right. But I believe every American would agree that the federal government, as well as our local governments, have a responsibility to provide an education for every one of our children. And so if there's ever one thing that we might be able to improve upon what the Founding Fathers did in this country, it might be a structural adjustment to America that makes education for every American child a federal right, which would compel the federal government to then levy in the appropriate areas the appropriate taxes to raise the necessary revenue to provide the quality of education that every child needs. And I think we made it crystal clear on this show this evening that we need smaller classrooms, maybe 15 to 18 children in a classroom with a very well-trained and very well-paid teacher who can integrate technology and use technology along with the classics in such a way that they can learn reading, writing, arithmetic, but also take advantage of the many and myriad of books that have been published on many different subjects that might pique the interest of our students. And so we do have some obligations to continue that fight, and certainly this generation does. But I do want to make it clear that tax incentives for benevolent corporations is a factor in this. There are also priorities that each of us should be pursuing. I know for a fact that in my own congressional district, some of my young children are more interested in certain kinds of gym shoes and wearing certain kinds of clothes, and they themselves have not prioritized the necessity of a laptop or a personal computer at home. And so that is indeed a factor. The information age, John, has caught all of us off guard, but certainly millions of Americans who have not been fundamental participants in this economy, it's caught them off guard, and government can help redirect some of those priorities in our families.
Well, actually, we've got to go to a break now. Coming up, we'll take questions from our audience, both in the studio and watching at home, next.
As all four of you guys jumped in.
The digital age is breeding a dangerous new crime industry. Your best protection? Information. Watch Cybercrime, a new program from ZDTV News. Legal experts Alex Wellen and Luke Ryder bring you breaking news, in-depth reports, and analysis from the front lines of high-tech crime. Know the risks. Cybercrime, premiering Friday at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. Only on ZDTV.
I'm hungry like the wolf for ZDTV. Amaze yourself.
This Cybercrime Spotlight is brought to you by Symantec.
Millions of dollars in scholarships go unclaimed every year, and the internet can help you tap into that pot. But be leery before you send money or information online. Beware of scholarship sponsors who guarantee you money or ask for a large upfront fee. For more hints, keep watching and go to cybercrime.com and click on Safety Tips.
Out of touch means out of luck. When you want cost-effective added protection, you're looking at one icon on the screen and support day and night behind it.
When you hear stories about viruses sweeping the country, how do you feel safe doing something as simple as sending an email?
Be smart, be safe with Norton SystemWorks 2000, the first fully integrated utility suite designed to both fix and prevent system problems. Buy yours today at Symantec.com/ZDTV.
Computers and our children. Why isn't there access for all? Chat live right now at ZDTV.com. Click on the digital divide.
It's Blockhead, your personal tour guide to the world of art through technology. Today's adventure, we visit the Sega Dreamcast audio specialists at Visual Concepts.
Hi, I'm Brian Luzetti. I'm the audio director here at Visual Concepts. One of the biggest jobs I had to do was come up with the design for our NBA and NFL games. We wanted it to sound exactly like when you're watching a game on television.
It's going inside! It's going inside!
I do all the sound effects for the games and the movies and all of our products.
Larry recorded thousands and thousands of sound effects. We have somewhere around 18,000 lines of speech.
Brian, on the other hand, does all the music for the game.
So when you're playing one play of our football game, you're going to hear all the sound effects, all the players, the grunts, the pad hits, the ball flying through the air, people catching it, you're hearing the crowd yelling, you're hearing individual people in the crowd saying stuff. So in one 15-second play, you're going over about 10, 11 months of work for Larry.
For more information, visit Blockhead at ZDTV.com/Blockhead.
Who needs Hollywood?
Yeah, we're going digital.
We're entering our own movies into ZDTV's second annual Cannes Film Festival.
You can win some really cool prizes, but hurry, March 31st is the deadline.
ZDTV's second annual Cannes Film Festival. Enter now.
Need help? Go to ZDTV.com/CamFest.
Welcome back to Silicon Spin. We've handpicked this special audience here with us, and each person has been involved with the digital divide in some way, shape, or form. But remember, we want your input too, so send us an email through the feedback link on siliconspin.com or chat with us at zdtv.com/chat. But right now we're going to go to the studio audience first, and we have a question and a person standing there at the mic.
I have a question for Congressman Jackson. My name is Paul Lamb. I run a nonprofit program called Street Tech, which provides professional computer training, certification, and job placement for at-risk and underserved members of local communities here in the East Bay. And one of the things that dismays me is that Congress seems to be focusing lately a lot on getting folks from overseas here to fill local jobs in the high-tech industry. And I'm wondering why more resources aren't being devoted to local grassroots programs like mine to give jobs right here on the ground to folks that need them.
Paul, Congressman, a nice vested interest question.
No, Paul, I think that's an excellent question. Certainly, if you look at my voting record, I would tend to support the concerns that you've raised. I've watched many members of Congress come to the House of Representatives and specifically support immigration legislation that opens up the great walls and doors, if you will, of opportunity of America to many foreigners who are better educated, who've attended the very schools that we need to produce here in our own country. Smaller classrooms, classrooms that have better trained teachers and better paid teachers, so we can have more teachers who right now are presently choosing to go into the private sector rather than to go into the form of public service necessary to make that difference. Paul, I'd like to work with you, and if you contact me at my office, maybe you and I can come up with some the appropriate incentives necessary to create that kind of environment for our own workers.
I have a kind of a question about this question that I'd like to throw at the panel, which is that I remember in the 60s there was a thing called the brain drain. It was considered a positive thing that we were stealing the best minds from Europe and elsewhere. But this term isn't used now that these people are coming from Hong Kong, China, and India, and somewhat Japan. And I kind of have mixed feelings about whether or not this is just a way to get cheap labor or whether it's really a positive thing just to get a lot of smart guys to emigrate to our country or immigrate. Does anybody think along these lines, or just me?
I don't think, I mean, I think I just, at the end of this year, resigned as president of a software company here. First of all, it wasn't cheap labor. I can guarantee we didn't pay our H-1B employees any less than we paid our employees that were U.S. citizens. I mean, the market just did not permit that. And certainly, you know, again, this whole question seems to always get back to the same thing. It gets back to education. I can guarantee you that I would have loved to have hired U.S. citizens. We had, every time we brought somebody in from a foreign country, we had to go through a bunch of legal rigmarole, get all these paperwork done, filled out for the government. There was waiting periods, and usually we were in dire straits to have somebody to fill the job. Certainly a ridiculous thing. I don't know any executive here in the Silicon Valley around this country that would not want to hire somebody who was a U.S. citizen.
But that may or may not be the case, and I think there are some issues. There are a lot of folks who argue that there are people who are 55 and over who can do some of these jobs, and there are some folks in our country who would like to be trained for these jobs. But I think the Congressman will agree with this. We know beyond a certainty that in 3, 4, 5 years we'll have 1.5 million jobs in this country we can't fill. We could start right now training some of those young men and women in the East Bay, going into Whitesburg, Kentucky, going up to Barrow, Alaska, going to the barrios of East LA or Brownsville, Texas. And if we started now, kids in those communities could be ready for those jobs. We wouldn't have to extend our visa programs. And yet I haven't heard anybody from industry saying, let's make the investment in our children here to get them ready for jobs that pay on average 40% more than traditional jobs in this country.
Well, that's because, we got another question over here, but that's because of the lack of those ethics classes.
when you say we could, you mean that the same organization, the U.S. schooling system, which has been doing a lousy job of educating people, now could go out and do more of it. Look, you talk about money. From 1960 to 1980, real per pupil expenditure in the U.S. doubled. During that time, all measures of educational quality dropped. So the problem is not...
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
The problem is...
Wait a minute. That's not the entire truth. You know, it's easy for some of you in the private sector to suggest that the U.S. education problem is simply because it's government-led or it's state municipal government authorities-led. You know, we've been spending $300 billion on computer chips for some very sophisticated military technology, which quite frankly is driving Silicon Valley right now. The Star Wars system, the satellite technology, the movie Enemy of the State was very clear on our ability to peep into people's private lives and find out information that we want. So we have been driving this economy. We've not been driving it in a way that benefits domestically U.S. students. Don't act or suggest for 1 minute that the $18 billion that the president proposed in the last State of the Union address for the National Institutes of Health isn't going to end up in computer chips looking at genome research and cancer research and diabetes research. And so much of the private sector economy that many of the private sector ideologues seem to be promoting are failing to recognize that much of that success is backed by tremendous government spending, and that spending has not been on the education of our children. It's been spent indirectly on the education of our children by funding our nation's other priorities.
To begin with, first, are you disagreeing with my facts about what happened to school expenditure from 60 to 80?
No, I'm not disagreeing with your facts.
But second, if the government taxes $50 billion from people and spends it on anything, private firms make money selling at anything. If the government didn't tax it, those people would have that $50 billion and they'd spend it, and private firms would make money selling to them. To suggest that somehow the government creates things.
Well, wait. Okay, yeah. I think you guys are going to beat this to death. Let's go to Sonia in the audience.
Yeah.
Hi there, I'm Sonia Urson from the Pacific Research Institute here in San Francisco. This has been a fantastic conversation, and I really enjoyed the documentary as well, David. In fact, it's brought up so many questions I didn't know what to ask. So I've narrowed it down to one, which is along the lines of government spending. I'm just going to throw out some numbers before I ask the question. And here they are. It took 46 years for a quarter of the population to get electricity. It took 35 years for the telephone to spread that far. It only took 16 years for the personal computer to go that far, and it's only taken 7 years for internet access to go that far. So when I look at those numbers, I see that it's clear that the progress in new technology is spreading really quick with lightning speed, and to my mind, the government doesn't have a lot to do with that. To my mind, it's really what the private sector's up to. So my question is, isn't the so-called digital divide really about the have-nows and the have-laters? And if that's the case, wouldn't allocation of resources be better left to the marketplace than to governments which have been largely inefficient?
If you're a have-now, yeah. If you're a maybe have-later or a have-never, no. When you talked about electricity, we have something called the Rural Electrification Administration, REA, which made sure that folks across this country got access to electricity. We had universal service programs. Every time you make a telephone call here in San Francisco, you're paying a little bit more so that your cousin in North Carolina, Wyoming, Montana, Alaska has telephone service. If you're talking about television, we had something called universal service. The reason you don't pay a tax on your television is because we made sure that over-the-air broadcasting was free for everybody in America. With regard to technology, this is, as we all admit, the most important change in our society.
And you know what? I kind of agree with you to the point where I'd sure like to see a rural electrification project take place so we can get ADSL out in the sticks where it belongs instead of downtown all the time. We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more questions from our audience. Stay with us.
I noticed that the post office always makes this argument. You know, the UPS also comes.
Computers and our children. Why isn't there access for all? Chat live right now at ZDTV.com. Click on the digital divide.
This week on ZDTV, we made it through Y2K, but what's next? Find out from Vince Cerf, co-creator of the internet, on this week's Big Thinkers. Hey, Sinbad's dropping by. Tune in and take a look at online resources for Black History Month, Friday on Call for Help. Do you want to be part of a TV show? Well, here's your chance. Send your submissions to ZDTV's newest show, You Made It. Go to ZDTV.com for all the details. That's what's happening at ZDTV and ZDTV.com. Amaze yourself.
Come back in like a half hour.
All right, Dad.
So what do you think about blue chips?
What's not to like?
Phil, you're late.
Bobby, not today. It's not a day. Your big lug. Come sit down.
Can I get you some peach tea?
My husband is jealous of my portfolio.
Not a good day for Phil.
Phil, your hands are a mess.
My stockbroker just called me with news. I'm sick about it. I mean, what do I tell my wife? She says to me, Phil, what's happening with our portfolio?
Phil's getting wacky out there.
I don't know what
Phil,
to think.
have you heard of Ameritrade?
Oh, yeah.
Online trading.
$8 a trade, Phil.
One price, no gimmicks. So easy.
Ameritrade, huh?
Do for yourself.
Girls, I got an email alert.
What's going on?
What is it, 3-for-1?
A 3-for-1 split or something?
So everybody here trades.
You mean they contact you by the computer and let you know?
That's right.
Get busy, Phil.
Hey, Bobby.
Yeah.
I think I feel like that peach juice.
Open your cash account by February 29th with $500 and get a 50% rebate on your first month's commissions, up to 20 equity trades. Visit Ameritrade.com. Ameritrade. Believe in yourself.
So you've got the best e-commerce website on the net, right? Prove it. Enter the UPS Merchant of the Week contest and you can win free promotion on ZDTV. Who has the coolest design? The best customer service? Register your site and let our viewers judge. Your .com could be featured on ZDTV for a whole week. The Merchant of the Week contest is on now. Register at ZDTV.com. Click on the Merchant of the Week.
Welcome back. Let's go to the NetCam. What's your question?
Hello. I've noticed during Clinton's speech that he talked about providing $100 million to help get 9 million homes online to cross the digital divide. And I broke that down using math, and it only equates to $11 per household. How's that going to help anyone?
Well, maybe they can get a cheap modem card for that. I don't know.
You try it. That's not. We're not talking about $100 million for connectivity. We're talking about $100 million, and actually, I think it's $50 million in the budget for pilot programs. What we're going to try to do is what we did with schools. Everybody talks about connecting schools. Most people don't know that we started looking at how to get technology in schools, how to get technology into housing centers, how to get technology in the hospital by doing pilot projects, working with the private sector, and working with state and local governments. We're going to do the same thing here. What are the most effective, what are the cost-effective ways across technology, using satellite, DSL, cable modems, twisted pair? How can we incent industry? And the way to find these things out is for government to work with the private sector to do some laboratories. Let's do some social laboratories.
I like they used incent as a verb. We have a guy in the audience that wants to ask a question, or one of our regular panelists, actually.
Thank you, John. My name is Joseph Muzan. I'm the CEO of Imhotech, where we integrate technology with urban culture and the entertainment industry. I'm also the executive director of Rollo, a foundation started by Herbie Hancock, who solely set this up to bridge the digital divide. My question is actually to the Senator Jackson. I'd like to know, you've mentioned that...
I appreciate the promotion.
You mentioned earlier about the cultural aspects and the influence our culture has specifically with the divide, in that kids choosing to spend money on tennis shoes or clothing as opposed to computers. I'd like you to expand on that just a bit, and if you could perhaps present a solution. One of the things we're doing at Imhotech is bringing music and entertainment to the web, figuring that will be the killer app to get African Americans wired. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think that's certainly a tremendous step forward. But again, that's assuming that you're already on the superhighway and you're interested in bridging the cultural divide by accessing Imhotep or OneNetNow.com or a number of other sites that are specifically designed for the divide. But the question is also an infrastructural and educational divide, for which all the panelists have discussed this evening.
We're going to go to one of our phoners now. We have somebody on the phone who's got a question. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on.
Yeah, the thing that I was wondering about, and I'm specifically going towards Senator Jackson, the thing towards money and the government giving tax breaks for companies, why isn't the government pushing for monies to go directly to the schools, not just $100 billion, say take $1 billion or $2 billion? Because, as we know, the government spends, I don't know how many billions of dollars each year on things that are literally a joke. And
well, let me say, sir, that I believe that President Clinton's recommendation is a mere pittance when one considers the size of the problem. But at the same time, I want us to at least recognize that before there was this internet, this thing that all of us are now fighting to become a part of and having access to because of the vast information that it spreads, there was a non-public government service where U.S. government scientists used to send information back and forth between defense contractors on a private network that essentially became public as the government began to declassify it and make it possible to connect millions of Americans. And so since the government essentially funded this concept, this idea of interconnectivity, And now that we're recognizing that what the government has started has now created huge divide in our society, the government also has a responsibility through tax incentives, for corporations to do more benevolent things on this divide question, but also the government has a responsibility to wire these schools and provide the type of access that millions of Americans presently do not have.
We have another question from the audience that we're going to take right now.
Hi, my name's Bill Rukeyser. I work for a nonprofit organization called Learning in the Real World. And I'd just like to remind everybody that computers and the internet, they're not magic educationally. Nothing rubs off automatically on the kids. It's part of instruction. And on top of that, there may be ages or there may be class levels where computers actually fit into the curriculum a whole lot better. And why is it that a lot of the rhetoric that we hear assumes that technology is like margarine and you can just spread it evenly all the way from kindergarten to 12th grade?
Anybody want to?
I think that's an excellent point. As we went around the country and dealt with many schools nationwide, one thing was clear, that as you go younger in the educational process, the more questions arise about the appropriateness. So that there's very little debate about high school seniors, but if you're talking about first graders, there are some real issues, and we tried to raise some of them in the documentary. There may be such a thing as too early an introduction to technology. There also may be such a thing as too much emphasis on it in the younger years. So I think we need to look at the appropriate impact in the educational system.
My 5-year-old loves her computer.
John,
Congressman Jackson.
I think one of the reasons there's such a tremendous emphasis on the internet is the entire economic context for which this show and this entire world and the world economy is taking place. We are now living in a global economic context. And therefore, as a result of that global economic context, millions, billions of people around the world are beginning to trade across lines, across nationalities, across languages, and literally the future is being driven by our ability to communicate across those lines. I know, for example, if you go right now to www.mids.org and you look on the web, you'll see tremendous internet connectivity between the United States, Europe, and Asia, and some parts of Australia. But you'll look at Africa, where there's almost a fourth of the people of the world, and there's very little internet connectivity. When you think about what is happening behind the tremendous internet connectivity of the United States, you realize that the south side of Chicago is also not connected. Neither is Harlem, neither is Compton, and neither are millions of Americans around the country, let alone around the world, and that's where the tremendous challenges lie.
Actually, curiously, Compton was one of the first places in California to have DSL for some reason. We have to take a quick break. We'll get final thoughts from our panelists, so stay with us.
So I didn't know there were 1.5 billion people in Africa.
Yeah. Big thoughts, big theories, big thinkers.
The internet is a constantly evolving web, but what should it become? Find out where Vint Cerf, one of the net's birth parents, says the most important tool of our age should be headed.
Big Thinkers, Wednesdays at 10:30, 9:30 Central on ZDTV. Computers and our children. Why isn't there access for all? Chat live right now at ZDTV.com. Click on the digital divide.
Tired of constant demands for new technology? Fortunately, there's CDW, the industry's leading direct solutions provider, where a dedicated account manager uses the buying power of a Fortune 1000 company to custom configure solutions to your needs. CDW makes technology easy, so you're free to enjoy the rest of your day. CDW, computing solutions built for business.
You took the classes. You bought the toys. You painted the room. You built the website. Yes, if you can make a baby, you can make a website. And we'll show you how. We're Homestead.com, the place to make your very own website. Free and easy. All you need is a reason. And those are all around you. Homestead. It's a new world. Make your place.
A lot of you NetCam newbies may not know how to get your VMails on ZDTV. Well, we've just instituted a new video upload system to make it easier than ever. First, you need to be registered for ZDTV.com and the NetCam network. Just go to the Interact section of our website and fill out the simple form. Then head over to ZDTV.com/NetCam click on the button that reads Send Us a Vmail. Now be sure to read over all the instructions. Remember, your Vmail must be in QuickTime or AVI format. If you get confused, you can check out our Vmail 101 tutorial at zdtv.com/netcam. Fill out the video upload form and attach your Vmail by hitting Browse. Then, click Send. You're done! Happy Vmailing from the ZDTV Netcam Network. Amaze yourself.
Well, that's all we have time for. It was pretty lively, don't you think? I'd like to thank our panelists, David Friedman of Santa Clara University, Larry Irving of Urban Magic, John McGraw of the California Republican Party, and film producer David Bolt. Also, thank you, Congressman Jesse Jackson, for joining us live from Washington, D.C., and a special thanks goes to our studio audience. They've been a great crowd. Give themselves a hand. And finally, thank you, the audience. Thank you, the audience at home. Thanks for your input on today's show. I'm John C. Dvorak. Thanks for watching Silicon Spin.
The following is a ZDTV special presentation. And now, Digital Divide.
Funding for this program was provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.